Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse. This is episode 479. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's going on?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together to talk about the books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we have Superman Unlimited issue 6, Wonder Woman 26, Absolute Flash issue 8, Nightwing 131, Justice League Red issue 3, Batman Superman World's Finest 44, The New Gods issue 11, Patreon book, we have got Green Arrow 20 that both of us are going to talk about, and then I've also got Gideon Falls issue 3. So that's what's coming up on the show today. Now, this will be going out at the normal time, and I have got a pretty good suspicion that you're probably thinking, he didn't say solicits. Where are the solicits? Well, we're actually recording this a day earlier than normal, so we're recording this a few hours before the solicits come out. So solicits will be in next week's episode. Normally they would be in this week's, but we had to record a day early, so no solicits till next week. So nothing bad's going on. It's fine. Everyone, calm down. Mm-hmm. Everyone's okay.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's fine. So yeah, that's what's coming up on the show today. There is one little bit of news, just a little bit of, I guess, left over from New York Comic Con, but obviously most of that we covered last week. So yeah, pretty straightforward week. Speaking of weeks, how was your week?
Pretty good. It is fall. It was my first week I spent being 40. So, my bones are cracking. Almost fell down the stairs once, but I'd do more with the dogs than my age. So, it was fine. I watched some, it's the spooky season. So we're doubling down on horror movies. So I watched Exorcist Believer, which who-wee.
Yeah, shit.
That's a movie that I've seen now. Believe it or not, the haunted house attraction at Universal, far better than the movie itself was. So yeah, and then what else? I watched Black Phone, which I don't know how you feel. I know you don't like Scott Derrickson that much. Yeah.
Middling.
Yeah. I quite like the Black Phone. I think we had seen it before, but it didn't make that big of an impact. So basically like watching it the first time. That was a lot of fun. And then I watched The Guest, which I guess is horror adjacent, right? You would say?
It's not really. I wouldn't say it's a horror movie.
Yeah, it was on Shudder, so I'm gonna count it.
Shudder has lots of things that aren't horror on it, though.
Yeah, but they're in the realm. There's at least a foot in. So, but yeah, it made me realize that I've seen a ton of Micah Monroe's movies. So that was cool. She's in a lot more things than I thought, because she's one of those actresses that I don't see for a while, and then she pops in. I was like, oh yeah, she's really good. But and for those that don't know, she was in Longlegs, It Follows. What are some of the other big ones? There's in that god awful Independence Day sequel. One of the only movies I took a nap in and woke up and did not feel guilty whatsoever. That was a good solid nap. It was hot outside. The air was going. I was comfortable. But yeah, Gus, very good. Dan Stevens had a synthwave score, directed by Godzilla Kong's own Adam Wingard. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know why you went to Godzilla Kong. He made Your Next, which is by far his best movie. So just going to mention that before we move on.
I was going to my own branding, Pete.
Yeah, but yeah. He made the movie in which Kong got beat like a little pathetic pissant.
Look, if you don't quit, you can't be beat. All right? Booking 101.
It's just delusion. He still lost. He still lost. He lost very badly, in fact.
I looked at the official scorecard and it was listed as a no contest. So, inconclusive, if you will. So, Your Next, very good. That's another real good. Adam Wingard's got some eaters in that lineup. And then there's the Blair Witch. So,
Yeah. Well, I do think The Guest is weaker than Your Next, and then I think Blair Witch is just kind of mediocre. So it's I hope his next thing, whatever it ends up being, is good. I watched the movie this week for a show that has a rating on IMDb of 1.4.
That's impressive. A 1.4 is impressive.
Yep. Some of the worst movies of all time don't even go below a 3 on IMDb.
No. Does Tommy Wiseau even have anything below a 3?
No, there's too many people who like ironically rate The Room a 10 out of 10 for that to be that low.
Right. Yeah. So, which movie was this?
This was a movie that is called Psycho Shark, but it's also known as Jaws in Japan.
Is this easily acceptable? Is this on Tubi?
It is on Tubi, although I would warn you, despite those titles, both titles, very little shark.
Aww.
There's a lot of college-aged Japanese girls in bikinis, if that's something you're into.
No, I want to watch sharks. All right, come on now. It's called Jaws in Japan, man. I want to see Bruce the shark going, attempting to see Mount Fuji. That's what I want to see. All right. Swimming up as far as he can, causing havoc, getting into scrambles. Jaws in Japan, 1.8. Again, that is. Does Birdemic even have a 1.8?
I don't think so. It's close. That's definitely closer than The Room is, but it's down there. So yeah, I mean, I've done other spooky watching as well, but that was for Extra Reels, which is a Patreon show that I do with David. This is a once a month thing where we do some of the worst things ever made, and this month just happened to be Psycho Shark. So
how do you guys decide on that? Is that a vote? Is that I'm gonna mess with David, or David goes I'm gonna mess with Pete? How does one procure?
It's a mix of things. Some months it's a vote. So this one was a vote. There was 3 bad shark movies put up for vote. I was hoping Cruel Jaws would win because I'd heard of that one, so it probably has at least some entertainment value. But the patrons decided that Cruel Jaws was not to be, and that instead we'd watch Psycho Shark. I think the alternate title, Jaws in Japan, like, just, it was too much of an allure to that title that it drew them in.
Yeah.
And we paid the price for it.
Oh, man. Jaws in Japan. God, I want to watch Jaws in Japan. I don't want to watch Psycho Shark. I do want to watch Jaws in Japan. See how much a simple title swap can work for you?
Yeah. It's 69 minutes long, so you can...
Nice.
You can go and enjoy that. And at 69 minutes, it feels padded as hell.
Yes. It's the longest 69 minutes of your life.
That's what she
said. See, I thought, hey now, I went and saw One Battle After Another a couple weeks ago, and that was like 2 hours and 25 minutes, and it breezed by. I couldn't believe we were in the theater for almost 2.5 hours watching that movie. Psycho Shark sounds like the complete opposite, where every minute feels like an eternity. So yeah.
I am looking forward to next month's Extra Reels, though, not because I expect I'll enjoy the movie, but it's more culturally relevant, and I feel like I need to see this bad movie. And that is, of course, Amazon Prime's War of the Worlds, which is all told via laptop screens. So I'm looking forward to that shit show, but that's for next
When you
one.
came out to the States, did you go out to Magic Mountain area, or did you kind of stick around the Universal kind of area?
I don't think I went there, no.
Okay, because it shows up in the background of War of the Worlds. That's the only thing I know about that movie. Is that if you know where you're looking, you can see the parking lot sign for Magic Mountain. Like, they didn't even do the bother of editing it out. So
well, it depends. Is it not supposed to be there? Is it doubling for something else?
From what I understand, it's not supposed to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is this like I mean, obviously it isn't because it's War of the Worlds, but I'm imagining there's a scene in Braveheart where if you're watching really close, you can see a white van driving in the background, which obviously not meant to be there in whatever time that was.
Same in Lord of the Rings. They were shooting far away from a highway, and they thought they had cleared all the cars for the takes, and one got through. So if you're really watching closely, you can see a couple cars driving through the background during the hobbits having an argument, I guess. So,
yeah, although
same kind of deal.
To be fair, these are fairly understandable in the sense that it's a road in the distance. There's not that much control they have over it. I think the one that sticks out and I don't watch this. I hated this show, but the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones that I saw photos of online seems that's just on the table in front of the actors. How are you missing that?
That's sheer laziness, right? That's not checking. Someone's failing their job.
Yeah, it's blending into the scene. The set decorator, or the continuity person, probably got fired for that blunder. Anywho, we can get into things. We got a list of books to talk about, but we'll start off with the ComiXology top 10, or the Kindle rankings as it actually is now. But I will be married to that name forever because that's what it was, and we will commiserate ComiXology with its title till the end of time. You got a guess for what number one is for the books that are out on Wednesday this week, Matt? As of right now, this right now being Friday this week instead of Saturday.
Yes, as of Friday, I'm gonna guess Absolute Flash.
That's correct. You actually got it. And one.
Yeah.
Number 2 is One World Under Doom. Number 3 is Wonder Woman. Number 4 is Unbreakable X-Men issue 1, which, hey, it's Gil Simone, so power to her. Number 5 is Nightwing. 6 is World's Finest. 7 is Titans. 8 is Rogue Storm issue 1. And then we have number 9, which is New Gods, and number 10 is Superman Unlimited. So yeah, pretty healthy DC top 10 this week, with 7 of them.
I was going to ask what Rogue Storm was. I'm like, is that an Image book? What is this?
No, it's Rogue and Storm.
No, it's Rogue and Storm. It's literally the title. I was like, oh, what type of fun book is this? It's just like, no. Storm and one of my favorite X-Men, great titling over there.
Yeah, Storm's cooler than Rogue. I don't know. That was a disrespectful way of saying that.
No, I do like Storm as a character, great, but I just, I've loved Rogue forever. She's up there. I've read far more comics than I should have because Rogue was in there. Probably came from watching the animated series in the 90s at a young age and hearing her call people sugar. That's just how it goes.
Does it for you, Matt? The southern drawl?
And the girl that could probably pick me up and throw me, that too.
No, let's not unpack that. That's too much for me to get into on this Friday, because I'm not mentally prepared to record today. This is normally a Saturday thing. My brain's like frazzled. I'm not ready for it. We'll move on. One bit of news to mention before we get into the books is there's going to be a one-shot crossover. Obviously you're thinking I'm going to say Marvel and DC because we've got a bunch of those coming. No, we've got Swamp Thing is Killing the Children. So James Tynion IV's crossing over Swamp Thing with his creator-owned book from Boom, which is cool. That said, though, up front, I'm not reading this until I've read Something is Killing the Children, so I'm not reading this when it comes out because I don't want to spoil any of that story. So, but no, it's interesting. It's a cool title. Like, I can't help but notice it.
It shows that Tynion's got some pull over there with DC, right? With Vertigo, to be able to cross over his own creator-owned with a character like Swamp Thing, that's super cool.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, it says his relationship with DC is still probably in a pretty healthy place. I would imagine. Obviously, Nice House by the Sea's coming back in February, so we got more of that to look forward to as well. But no, neat. Makes you wonder if there's going to be more Tynion Vertigo books down the horizon since they've got that line up and running again. But no, worth mentioning, since that I think that dropped after we recorded last week. So cool. All right, so we can get into the books. Starting off with Superman Unlimited, issue 6, Dan Slott writing with Rafael Albuquerque and Mike Norton on the art. So yeah, this is the second half of the two-parter. Superman's in the Kryptonite cave. Lois is down there as well. Kryptonite King is threatening her, wants rid of her because she witnessed his evil doings, and we continue from there. And it was mostly a solid wrap up to all that stuff. This one felt more like it was a lot of action than it was the character intrigue or the overall world building. Obviously, there's one big thing that happens by the end that is a completely new thing they've introduced here, which is Superman eventually drops that sunstone, and he immediately realizes, oh shit, we have to evacuate this part of the city because a kryptonite fortress is about to spawn out of the ground. So so that happens.
And that was a pretty good sequence too, because it's him going around with his gold, right? He's still gold at that point. Or
No,
he's
no,
not
no. He's
anymore,
just.
'cause the
I think.
time
I think he
went on.
just lost it, so he's got no powers at that point.
That's right. Right. So he's going around trying to evacuate people, and people are like, "Oh man, look, it's Superman!" And he's still doing the Superman thing of greeting them, but it's like, guys, we got to move. There's a whole lot going on. Which I really enjoy that ticking clock of the gold thing, right? Because he gets exposed in the cave, and then he needs to, he has to go gold, and he only has the 119 seconds, right? And he starts taking out the Cobra agents that were there, or Cobra cult members. I don't know if they're agents or cult members, but anyways, and then he flies to the city to go catch up to Lois and whatnot. So I do like the ticking clock aspect that's brought in to the character. But yeah, a lot of fun action in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it does a good job at the start because it shows you a couple of kids taking photos of the super ship that he came in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's neat about it is that it establishes that the regular civilians in the city do really like Superman still. And it's not like it's necessary, but it's a nice touch because when they're in danger later and he's running around without powers trying to save them, it's like, oh, we know these people are innocent. As much as their ruler is a piece of shit and is up to no good in the neighborhood and all that stuff, like they clearly still love Superman. They're clearly innocent people. So you can get behind him pulling out the usual heroics. Lois spends a lot of time in the super ship. She basically calls it in to save her when she's under threat and ends up piloting it for a while. She grabs the super stone with the mechanical arm and goes flying away with it, and then we end up in the sky and all that, and that's when the sunstone falls and all the hell breaks loose. The big development here though is that immediately Kryptonite King's like, hey, this is still our country, this is our soil, this fortress belongs to me. And Lois tries to argue against that. He's like, hey, you snuck in here illegally. You're not supposed to be in my country. I can have you arrested and deported or whatever. So they kind of just have to accept that, as much as we stop Cobra from getting this, and like Fortress and the Sun Crystal, like this guy now has it, and also because of this conflict, he's probably not going to be welcome here again. And that probably means that Kryptonite King is going to sell kryptonite to worse people, and as we get at the end of the issue, he's going to use technology that this fortress tells him about in the archives of how to build advanced Kryptonian armor and stuff to possibly fight against Superman and other people that come knocking.
I like how complex of a villain he is, because I do feel like Castillo wants to do what's right by his people, and ultimately he doesn't have any real beef with Superman. Except that now that Superman's going to try to talk reason into him and stop them from making all their money, right, with the kryptonite. Try to be more cautious. So the fact, like, you see him like, oh yeah, Superman does want to do well, but then he effectively tries to kill Lois to keep her from talking, right? So he's not just like cut and dry mustache twirling villain, which I really appreciate.
I agree to a point. I think that like him trying to kill Lois and saying, "Oh, the ends justify the means here because this is for the people of my country, and like one death is worth that sacrifice." Blah 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 blah. I do think that comes off as super hokey, and like he's not developed enough, and like it doesn't feel like it doesn't have as much weight to it as it should to feel like, oh, this guy's willing to do something very dark because he really believes in his cause. He does just feel like a comic book villain who's like, yeah, I'll happily kill you to do what I'm doing here. It happens very late and quick to the point where even after the fact, he's like, when they get outside and Superman even knows that he's tried to do this and they kind of confront him about it, he just kind of shrugs it off and is like, yeah, I was doing only what I thought was necessary. And it just feels a little bit light to me, or a bit thin compared to like how dark that could feel, that he's willing to just do this at any point. Maybe he should have tried even harder to silence Lois after she tried to escape, like maybe make it feel like he's more desperate trying to get to her or something. But it feels like there's no consequence to everyone knowing that he tried to kill Lois. I guess that's what makes it feel too light to me, is that it feels like he just kind of shrugs it off when everyone finds out.
Well, and he's a, as we know now, he's like, I don't feel he's a dictator exactly, but I feel like the it's there in the foundation for it to happen. Like now he has a kryptonite palace. He even sits on the throne, right? That's built. He goes, oh, this is a castle fit for a kryptonite king or whatever. But yeah, him just kind of hand waving what was necessary for him to do, especially in the year 2025 and things that are going on. I don't know. It just felt like, oh, this is what something like a person like him would do, because he can justify it in his own brain, therefore it's fine, even though to a rational person, absolutely not. It's like, no, you just tried to kill a journalist for covering what was going on, you know? So, but I do like the fact that he does threaten them with like, hey, Daily Planet's out of here. You guys aren't welcome here anymore. And tell Superman, you can get them out of here or else they're going to be tied up in court, you know? So, you know, he definitely is, you know, those seeds are being sown that he's a much worse guy than we thought previously.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I get everything he's doing. Like, I understand, and it does make sense. It's more just like a compelling discovery that he's willing to do it, as opposed to just, oh, he just happens to be this way.
Yeah.
And there's not, you know, there's not much of a story to him being this. It's just kind of is. So yeah, there's some action as Superman and Lois as well in the ship, saving people as the Kryptonite fortress is kind of, well, I say Kryptonite, the Kryptonian fortress is coming up.
Yes.
That's it. It does look pretty green, so I don't know if that's just...
No, I think because it's El Caldero and most of the stuff there is Kryptonite, right? Like, that's why it's coming up.
Yeah, but it's not, though.
Fortress.
Because we found out in last issue, most of the buildings are just painted green.
Right. But no, nothing's painting the Kryptonian crystals, right?
Well, no, but...
So, right. So, from the...
that doesn't answer the question I just asked, Matt, but go on.
Right. I just feel like because of the amount of kryptonite that is there already, that's why it's coming up as this screen.
Okay.
You know?
I
don't think it's the, you know, full like the big meteor, but it's definitely taking some of those, you know.
I'm not mad about it. It's not a big deal, but I don't think it actually makes sense that it's green. It should be rock, right? Because we've seen that before, that when it comes up from ground, it should look like rock and grey and brown and all that, you know, whatever rock usually is. As opposed to the fortress in the, you know, the Antarctic, because it's, you know, it's ice and snow, so it comes up as ice. Anyway, regardless, you know, this all plays out. He's happy that he's got his fortress. I almost forgot for a second that Lois had to pretend not to know who Superman was in front of her employee, because like she's just kind of like at one point Superman says Miss Slade, and I'm like, why does he say because this guy's sitting there? That's right. Okay, fair enough. So that's there. Anyway, the issue ends with they're trying to figure out ways to deal with all this new kryptonite that's on the market and deal with all these weapons that villains are going to have. And the tease at the end is that John is going to go work at a compound in Smallville with John Henry and Lana, who are developing kryptonite resistance stuff, and he's going to be the guinea pig and test all of it. So I don't know how much the next issue is going to focus on that, if it's just going to be all about that, or if it's just going to be a subplot in the next issue. But either way, that's what they've set up for next time.
Like how Lois is like, I'll get my best guy on it, and then just ends up being her kid. You're like, wait, you're offering up your kid as a science experiment? That doesn't seem very maternal, you know? But
yeah. Also,
I don't know, they gave me a chuckle.
Testing kryptonite resistance on a Kryptonian just sounds kind of like potential torture, because if it's not working, it's like, does this hurt? Yes, it feels like I'm dying. All right, back to the drawing board. We'll try again in 20 minutes.
Yep. And maybe it's because he's half human, it won't affect as much, right? Like, you know, he's only half as susceptible to it as his dad is.
I think that's what Lois is going to tell herself at his funeral. So, I thought he was half human, so it wouldn't have hurt him as much. Also, John's been running around with the Suicide Squad, or the Secret Six, right? I feel like this is a much better use for him. He's like, running around with those guys? No thanks. I'll take kryptonite poisoning. You know? So, but yeah, I did like that, because I've been wondering, you know, not reading that Secret Six book, I've been wondering what John's been up to. So it was nice to see him pop up here at the end. Yeah, I even remember he was in that book, to be honest. Like, that book's been... I mean, is that not already over? Because that was only a 6-issue mini, I think.
Yeah, it must be, because I don't see it. It's not being solicited anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so this was an alright issue. I don't think I liked it quite as much as the last one, or even the last two, which I thought were very good. I think this is still pretty solid. I like the whole idea that there's another fortress inside this city, and, you know, them dealing with this ongoing status quo of kryptonite being more freely available is still an interesting idea to explore. Plus, you get some good heroics with them saving people in the city, so it's not as like super interesting as the previous issues. And it's funny how we've not even mentioned the Cobra cult that much, because all like they basically get shoved to the side instantly at the start of this issue. It doesn't really matter that they were there.
Yeah. Well, I do love that the Cobra Cult leader, they call him Lord Naga, 'cause, which again, after hearing you talk about the Cobra Cult in Batman and the Outsiders from the 80s, it's very funny that they're popping back up now. But basically it's like, oh, drop the holograms and stuff, and it was all very kind of cheesy in a way. So I'm glad it kind of got dealt with as fast as it did. And Superman, gets him out of there while he's all golded up. So,
yeah, will this be the last we see the Cobra Cult in this book? I mean, who can say? Time will tell. But yeah, art is generally pretty good. I actually don't know if I noticed when it was Norton. I feel like it was mostly Albuquerque.
Yeah.
To my mind, I don't know.
Me too.
I don't know if Norton was like doing a really good job of mimicking his style or whatnot, but I don't think anything stuck out to me as being super different.
Seeing if they have a page breakdown. I'm thinking maybe the only thing that looks as different is the plane scene when Lois is talking to Ron. And they're in the plane and Superman's in his super ship.
So a couple of pages at the end, basically.
Yeah. And then also a lot of the Rebel stuff looks Albuquerque-esque, but not fully. So maybe that was it. So it was just maybe helping to, finish some pages in time. But I'm looking for the art breakdown, like a title page. No, it doesn't have anybody listed. So, I mean, it has them listed, but nothing like a breakdown.
Yeah, it doesn't say page 1 to 5 or whatever. No. That's fine. So yeah, no, I mean the action flows. It's like like Albuquerque excels at motion and like giving us a sense of motion, and there's a lot of that in the action sequences in this issue with the layouts and whatnot. So that is what it is. I will say his faces inherently always look like they belong in a horror story, which is maybe a little bit unfit for Superman, but hey, whatever. It's Albuquerque. It's certainly not bad though. What are you giving Superman Unlimited issue 6?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Oh, very nice. I think I'll just go with a 7 for this one. I still quite liked it. It was still a good book, but it just it wasn't like sparking my imagination or excitement quite as much as the previous issues. Also, I don't even have that set up. I've been trying to take down notes of what we've been rating things for record keeping. So I'm just going to, where's my list of books? I'm just going to write it on this for now, and I'll copy it to somewhere more permanent in a bit. So just
don't forget where you wrote it.
Oh no, it's just on my list. The worst case scenario is I'll have all the ratings and the timestamps in the finished version, and they'll be like, why is all the ratings at the end of the titles? That's weird. But yeah, cool. All right, next up we have Wonder Woman issue 26, Legacy number 826. Tom King writing with Daniel Sampere on the art. I like this issue quite a bit, which not surprising. I usually like Tom King's Wonder Woman. I think this obviously filled in a little bit of backstory, kind of gives you a little bit of how this island came to be. But it also, I thought, did a great job with the ending of recontextualizing the Mouse Man Knows, Mice Have Ears thing. Because at the end, it's like, because I mean, the present day part of the story is basically just Diana storming the castle and getting to Mouse Man, and they have a bit of a fight. Now, he's surprisingly strong, which is maybe something we can, find out about in future issues. But at the end, she still kind of wins because she's still freaking Wonder Woman. And he basically just says, we've got your daughter. You thought you had her somewhere safe, but as you still haven't learned, mice have ears, Mouse Man knows. And I'm like, oh, that's such a good way to like drop that in at the end.
It was, and it was so ominous too, right? Those two phrases, right? Not that ominous. Like, yeah, mice have ears, Mouse Man knows. Like, yeah, but the way that he says it when it's about Lizzie, and you're just like, oh my god, just the pit that opens in your stomach. Right, for Diana there. But yeah, I really enjoyed the backstory of Mouse Man through this in a way that, the way that King unfurled it and the reason why this island even exists. And I was like, oh man, he's got this all plotted out, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say the guy who sets this island up isn't Mouse Man. It's this other guy, this old man, Mr. Was it Phi? Yeah, Ernest Phi.
Yeah.
Or Pi, sorry, not Phi. Pi. Ernest Pi. Pye. he sets this up because he's like, hey, my wife died in this crisis, and I don't blame the superheroes. They're clearly trying to help us, but all this shit seems to follow them. So I kind of want to like go somewhere where they don't exist, where we could be left untouched by capes and spandex and blah, blah, blah. And Mouseman's in the crowd smiling. He's like, yeah, that sounds great. Wonder Woman humiliated me. I want to be as far away from them as possible. So we see them on the boat meeting each other for the first time. They shake hands. They're very cordial and getting along with each other. And we see kind of after some time on this island where they've prospered, one problem is that there's starting to be crime, right? So all this entire island of people who have come here willingly, there's now starting to be robberies and some violence. And it's like, oh, we need a way to deal with this, but we can't have, like, this is bad. Like, the old man's worried. He's like, man, if people start yelling help, like, the capes are going to show up. Like, Superman's going to hear and, like, fly over here kind of thing. We have to, like, take care of this ourselves. And that's when Mouseman starts having these big mice attack people and, like, it literally bites a mugger's arm off, or leg off.
Yeah, his leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, from their knee down. You're like, oh, man.
Yeah, it's super dark and grisly. And then you see he's got, like, a little gang. And that's how it starts. It just starts with him and a few guys who are with him, roaming the streets, doing violence to keep, like, order. And then it starts to become... oh no, people have spoken out against us. We'll go and do violence to them. And then, like, his army has grown. They're like, hey, sir, if they're not allowed to say certain things, can we have, like, a guideline on what they're allowed to say? And you can see how over time that just became, more and more and more whittled down to just these two sentences. This is all they're allowed. They're not allowed to say it. And we get a great example, actually, of, like, after this has been implemented, after he's, like, told everyone all this, you see, like, a dad hitting his child because she's saying she wants cereal, and he's, like, just yelling at her Mouseman knows and smacks her. It's just super dark.
And that's our girl that we've been following, right? The one that Diana saved. Yeah. She's got the pink hair, and that's the dad, And then there's a super creepy page where he takes Mr. Pie, right? And now Mouseman has essentially usurped him. And he does that thing where he puts the mice on the dude's stomach and puts a basket over it, so they eat through him, and you're just like, oh man.
Well, the key thing with that scene is that he says, oh, you of all people yelled out for help. You yelled out for Superman because you don't agree with how things are going here. I can't have that. And that's why he's being killed by the mice. And it's like, oh, you have just taken over as a dictator. And it does feel like anytime a dictator or a fascist rises up and takes over this community, which was built on this idea of being separate, only to find out that it's left them vulnerable to this kind of control and influence. And one of the things I liked about that scene with the dad hitting the girl as well is that it focuses on this poster on the wall, which is very much your classic propaganda poster, but it's Mouseman, right? It just says Mouseman knows as he looks up, kind of in the sort of that. It's almost like one of those, military recruitment kind of things or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely has that. There was a word for it that's not propaganda, but there's a for that style of art. But it's very much that,
like the how do I say Art Deco? But that's not right.
Because Art Deco is part of that style. But it's definitely of that, where it's the very clean lines and flat colors.
There's a flag behind
everything
them.
Is, and all that type of stuff. And it was very chilling. For that.
Yeah, really good. He does crush Wonder Woman's tiara, though, so I don't know how we're getting that back.
So I'm wondering if his power is being driven from the people that are behind him, right? Like, when he was just Mouseman trying to take over the Capitol, right? People looked at him as, like, not as a threat, so she was able to deal with him easier. But here now, he almost has the power of belief in him behind him, so he's able to catch that tiara, and he goes, not this time, right? And so, which leads to a great fight scene between her and him, where you think Diana's just going to mop up with him, but he fights back.
Yeah, he holds his own, and he does ultimately lose until obviously the final, hey, we've got your daughter moment. But he does say, like, all the mice, like, they power me, I am Legion. He says that line. And maybe, when he says mice, what he actually means is all these people who give me power. Like, they literally, somehow he's actually absorbing that into actual physical strength and ability. Maybe they'll elaborate on that going forward, I don't know. But
Yeah.
It's definitely good because he gets the shit kicked out of him and he's lying there bleeding, but he starts smiling, which builds up to obviously that final moment, that final shocked look in Diana's face, and then you just see the Mouse Man soldier holding little Lizzie crying in the last page. Good full page spread. Obviously, the art is just stunning throughout this.
Well, and again, that looks like one of those scary propaganda posters, right? It's got a guy in a mask with the helmet, very, very fashy looking, right? And she's crying, holding on to him. He's got look like a big old gun on there too.
Also, Matt,
very
did you enjoy Diana German suplexing Mouse Man?
Brother, the point on her toes, the arc of it, the bridge of her back, the way that Mouse Man's getting absolutely shit whipped. Yeah, man, this was a Mr. Perfect Kurt Angle-esque suplex. I know this might factor into decisions later. I'm just saying. But yeah, no, Sampere, just the perfect bridge here. Like Diana's not even on point. He's already over. And you can tell the point of her toes. So with the big old crunk in the background and the concrete coming up, like she threw him with force, suplexed him to death. So yes, I was building to that, and I was like, oh, Pete will bring it up. I know he will.
Yeah.
So
he also takes
fantastic.
He also takes a bath in mace in the flashback at one point.
Yeah. No, thank you.
That's him ruling. He's not in a jacuzzi giving it orders. He's in a bathtub of mace.
Yes. And that makes it even more concerning of what is going on here. Like, yes, fascism sucks, but fascism in a pool of mice? What? Talk about multipliers, all right? Like,
and
if you notice,
I was gonna say, they also have that page where he's literally giving his speech to people and he's got the big flags up at the sides, and it is very much like fascist dictator. Yep. Here's the big flags on either side of him as he's yelling from a balcony. It's the classic imagery, and then they all chant Mouse Man knows.
And also as he goes, right, when he goes to the island, he looks like a regular dude, right? Like he's, if you look at him, but the more time he spends there and the more time he takes to power, he starts taking on more mouse-like attributes. So when he's running around with that gang, and he's wearing the mouse cop hat with the, walking the big giant rat, or mouse rather, his teeth start to grow out longer, like a mouse's. And then if you notice and then if you notice in the scene where he's fighting Diana, he has a mouse tail.
I did notice that
hanging off of him. And it's just like, what is going on with him?
I wasn't leaping to that's actually a physical thing on him, though. Like, that could just be like a prop attached to his genes. It's not necessarily actually physically a tail.
He is embracing this idea.
And same with the teeth.
Mouse
like
Man.
he could just be putting in, a couple of false teeth for that effect.
Or he filed the rest of his down, so those two are longer, right? The things that he'll do in the name of power type deal. But yeah, and then when it culminates with him on the balcony with the flags, again, very, very fascist looking.
I would like to point out though that in that page where he's got the gang with them after he starts attacking, the muggers and stuff with his little gang of mice men. He's walking with his mouse hat on, but he's got like an open jacket with no shirt on, so he's just topless underneath the jacket, and he's got his abs and all that on show. I was like, this looks like what you expect to see in like the stereotypical like in an 80s movie when they walk into a gay bar. This is what you expect to see at the gay bar. Is this look? Yeah,
the kind of leather biker look.
Yes,
right, and that,
that's in Police Academy, the Blue Oyster Bar, right? That's what I'm.
Yes,
that plus like huge like sad Disney adult, like those two things combined.
With the mouse ears, I get it.
Yes.
But they also look like one of the gangs the Warriors would have beat up, right? In that movie, on their way home to Coney Island. Like, oh no, not the mouse cops. So, just very, very creepy. And again, Tom King and Sampere are a hell of a team because just the creepiness that exudes by not, yes, the tub full of mice is very creepy. But even more creepy is him delivering the speech and the people shouting back, Mouse Man knows. They fully bought into it. And he gets his power from the people, right? So if the people are willingly giving him this power, you know, that's even scarier than him just, you know, taking it, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
they're
mean,
giving it to him.
I love the detail in this backstory that this wasn't his idea. He just came along to this island and then saw an opportunity to rise up and take control, because that felt very true to life to me, especially since they're demonizing an entire group of people, in this case superheroes, which obviously stands in for any minority you want, to be like, hey, they're the enemy, we're better, and we're here, and if you follow my rules, everyone will have a happy, safe, you know, prosperous life. Even though they're all living in this really horrible military state now, because it's awful. So, you know, I like all that.
Absolutely.
It's good stuff. And the art is gorgeous, so much detail. We were talking about the German suplex, and obviously the fight is full of moments. But even like those darker bits with the dad and the daughter, or the mice like eating torture. I mean, torture might not even be I mean, it is torture, but like it's more of a murder than just a torture, because torture is not designed to kill you, technically.
No.
So it is what it is. But I had a great time. I think the payoff of that phrase coming back round at the end of this issue as a, like, we got you, is I think is really inspired, and it really pays off because that phrase has been hammered so much since the start of this arc. And I get why everyone was thinking, oh, we're hearing it too much, but then this moment says there's power in the fact that we've heard it so much, and then it feels like such a cocky slime ball whipping it out in this capacity and saying, no, mice have ears, mouse man knows. So really well done stuff. I like this quite a bit. What are you rating Wonder Woman?
I'm gonna give this a 9.
I concur with the 9 out of 10. I think that is exactly the right score I would give this. Having a great time. So cool. Absolute Flash, issue 8, Jeff Lemire writing with Travis Moore on the art. So, this is another backstory issue. But this time it's not the Rogues that we're getting the backstory of, it's of Barry and how he came to work with Eleanor Thawne, but also why she's involved. Turns out her grandfather was Eobard Thawne, and he was around in Jay Garrick times. Turns out World War II still happened in this universe. That's good to know, because it might not have. Like, there was a chance it didn't.
Right?
So, good to know.
Well, judging from the absolute evil thing, I felt like it kind of did, because they did talk about the heroes rising up at a certain point, right? Like with...
Oh, they might have even mentioned it, but it just, when they mentioned it in this one, I just went, oh, it's good to know that World War II exists.
Yeah.
We still have context here.
And then making Eobard her grandfather instead of from the future or whatever, I really like that twist, because it lays like him having something to do with the creation of the Flash, right? So just what do you know about Professor Zoom, Reverse Flash, whatever we call him now, of Eobard Thawne? The fact that he, it was his desire to uncover what the Speed Force was, whatever they're calling it here, that energy that couldn't be contained.
Well, it's another.
I really like that.
It's another place here. Like, it's like a portal to another world. So it's like almost like a Phantom Zone-esque place, if not just another dimension. It's hard to kind of tell, but the fact that he goes in it in the backstory though does make me think he's going to come back out, and because of timey-wimey, this place doesn't move the same way that ours, or their reality does timeline-wise. I suspect he's still going to eventually pop out and be Reverse Flash. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe someone else will be Reverse Flash on this Earth. It's hard to know for sure, because they can do anything they want. But I would suspect it's not the last we've seen of Eobard Thawne. That would be my guess.
Well,
or Jay Garrick, for that matter.
Or Jay, right? Yeah. And then just the idea when she explains to Barry what he went through with this program, right? So we find out that it was called Blue Trinity because they had uncovered something when they detonated the Trinity device, right, out in New Mexico. And so Thawne was looking into that energy, and that's what leads to this. And because he kind of hit with what he hit a wall with the science of the time, so he started to get into more esoteric supernatural stuff, and that made the government nervous. So they went to pull the plug. I really like that too, because it gives it almost a cosmic horror kind of vibe, where he's like, well, we've reached the depth of the knowledge for the science here. What can we do to reach out to this? And it's almost like, not that it's driven him insane, but that desire to uncover it made him look at alternative sources, which made the government uneasy, which I really like, just playing with that kind of dark history vibe of things. And especially in this world where Darkseid has created it, right? Just the, not that it's anti-life exactly, but the fact that something is driving Eobard Thawne to uncover this, I really liked.
Yeah, we get obviously Eleanor going to Barry and luring him in by saying, hey, you don't have to be a teacher here anymore. You can come back and do some real investigative science. And he does very quickly get on board and wants to be involved. We get the backstory, of course, of Eobard and even a little bit of, Jay being pulled in as well. Because, well, actually, Jay Garrett gets pushed in by Eobard, and then Eobard lets himself be taken in by the energy. Yep. So that's kind of what's happened there.
And that look on Eobard's eyes, right? He's got like this wide look with tears coming down his face where he says, I'm sorry I couldn't let you take it from me. I can't let anyone, right? That was the kind of madness vibe that I was getting. Like, what is going on here with him? That, Travis Moore's art really, really went up.
Yeah, well, he's definitely obsessed, if nothing else. But, Barry gets really deeply involved. We cut to 2 years later. He's working on the project. He's building these flash suits, which are basically just designed as suits to possibly traverse into this other world through the Speed Force energy, which they never call it that in this. Of course, we're calling it that. But he meets Wally's dad, who's just been appointed to this place, and he's kind of pissed about it because he's like, hey, Eleanor, I thought we were doing this for scientific reasons and discovery. The military, if they get involved, are just going to want weapons, and she thinks that's an okay price to pay to keep getting to do the work. We'll give them a few toys based on this technology and our discoveries, but our real goals are still the same. So they have a bit of conflict about that. But Barry does meet Wally for the first time, right? They meet in the cafeteria, and they get along well enough. They sort of joke about Wally's dad being a bit of a grump, and all the rest of it. They talk about music and science, and that Wally's not really interested in science. And that's kind of all it is. But obviously the reason why that's there is because the end of this issue is going to do a big tease. And it's quite interesting to think back to the fact that Barry was being very friendly with Wally in the flashbacks that we got back in like the first couple of issues. Because when Barry gets close to this portal, after the other like team members go through and they find a big spaceship over there, which they bring back to like study and all the rest of it. So there's we'll go back and talk about some of that because there's these big advancements. But the ending is that Barry gets reached out to by the Speed Force energy and he hears a voice, right? And he's like, wait, Eobard, is that you? Now, it doesn't look like Eobard. It looks like maybe himself from the future.
Yeah, because it's somebody wearing the Flash suit that he designed.
Yeah, that was my first thought anyway. But the final line says, stop, you must stop. Wally, it must be Wally. And it does kind of recontextualize the idea that if Barry had heard this and was like getting closer to Wally because he knew that Wally was going to be important, it is kind of an interesting wrinkle to throw into what their friendship was that we got little seeds of back on those first couple issues. So interesting. But
it's not based off of trust, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, but it definitely introduces the idea of some timey-wimey elements of this, of like, you know, people who have went into this Speed Force, this other dimension, like they're able to like pop back up later, which again further just fuels the idea that Eobard Thawne might just get spat out at the same age he was when he left, kind of thing.
Yeah, because this place is almost like contained by that red energy that we've seen Wally use, right, as the Flash that we take as Speed Force, right? So yeah, it's almost like it's containing this ship, like whoever these aliens were, you know, they had discovered it and then almost got stranded there, and then they're able to bring it back. And I'm assuming that's who the alien creature thing is that we saw at the end of one of the issues.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I don't think this place was designed to contain the ship. I think the latter is the more true thing. Is that this ship was here exploring and got stranded, and you know they were just finding it now. It is interesting that it looks like it has big cat ears. I don't know what to make of that. If it's like this is like some weird like future Selena Kyle's like ship who's traveled.
Yeah, to me it looks more like early sci-fi when like people thought there was like portals in the center of the earth, like Jules Verne kind of stuff. So it has kind of that kind of design flair, like almost steampunky in a way. Because those look like big giant tail fins to me more than cat ears. So yeah, it felt like that old pulp kind of sci-fi Journey to the Center of the Earth type vibe. So but yeah, I'm guessing it has to do with the alien body that was there, which also gives it kind of an Area 51 vibe, which is someone that grew up out here in Vegas, and those, that story, it kind of that really hit for me. So
Yeah, I can see
man.
those vibes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do wonder if this ship's going to be something that we can like. Is this like a version of something that we're going to understand when they finally say what it really is? Like, from the main universe. I'm curious about that. I think this was like, I think it's been interesting seeing this book flesh out because I would still call it the weakest of the Absolute books, but I think it's been very interesting between the Rogues flashback issue and then this backstory issue, how it's been kind of filling in these gaps and it's feeling a bit fuller and a bit more just easier to kind of like get into now because we kind of understand more of what's going on. I also think it's a nice consistency or editorial kind of coherence here because that Absolute Evil one-shot went into detail about why a lot of the JSA members never became heroes, or if they did become heroes, they kind of stopped very quickly for one reason or another. But Jay's in this book, and Jay obviously goes into the Speed Force dimension or whatever it is. I like the idea that they never, they knew not to mention him in that list in the other book because they already knew that Lemire was going to bring him up here. It feels like someone's really paying attention, and maybe Lemire said, "Hey, I want to use Jay in some capacity," and they said, "That's fine as long as you don't make him a Flash in the Golden Age because we're saying that's not happened." And he's like, "That's fine, that's not what I'm doing." Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe they planned things and then they said, "Hey, do you want to do something separate with Jay?" Or I don't know. But it doesn't feel like there's no contradictions happening here, and I like that.
And we've gotten Alan Scott mentioned in Green Lantern, right? He was a member of the town.
Yes.
He lived in Evergreen because they mentioned his shop, right? So yeah, again, these names that definitely are recognizable are being used in those books, right? And not in the Absolute Evil, which I do like. Yeah. So whatever that's editorial, or if that was Lemire reaching out to, why am I drawing a blank on who's the writer of Green Lantern? And he did
Al Ewing.
On Green Lantern, Al Ewing, thank you. I kept wanting to say Abnett. I'm like, that's not it. Like, Abnett's not doing any of these. But yeah, Al Ewing. I wonder if that was some Al Ewing reaching out to Lemire and this type of stuff too. So, but yeah, definitely like that. And then just the vibe of the Speed Force being this very weird energy. Like, again, we keep saying Speed Force because we don't have a name exactly for it yet, but it seems like the Speed Force to us. But it's just, it's very unpredictable, right?
I wouldn't say it does seem like the Speed Force. I think we're calling it that because it makes sense because that's where the powers are coming from. But here it's definitely very different. Like, this is a portal to another dimension. So it's more like, I mean, maybe the Speed Force is just like something where it's still this sort of fabric in between realities, and this is just the one reality that they've happened to tap into. It's not so much that this is specifically the only thing that you can get to via the Speed Force, but it does feel like it's being presented very differently to what it is normally in the main universe. So it's definitely given this sense of exploration, and it is kind of interesting how it does almost feel like a little bit of a horror story, this idea of like the big unknown that we can discover in this new frontier of this like weird dimension through the nuclear energy that happened by accident because of the Trinity explosion. I don't know. There's something interesting, but in the same way that Green Lanterns went ultra kind of like ethereal sci-fi, this is going like almost cosmic horror for Flash, which I would never have predicted that as a direction for Flash, but it's oddly working so far.
Yeah, it does work, and especially with the threat of Thawne. Like, if this plays out like we associate Thawne with, the idea of him being this like lost to time, like whatever has happened to him since then, right? Like, this voice that calls out to it, to people too. Like, there's just a very there's a sense of uneasiness associated with all of this, which is to me very cosmic horror, where like you can feel like it's not right, but you can't exactly put your finger on it.
And for the record, I don't think the voice is some entity that's like cosmic, or whatever you want to call it. I think the voice is just something that's going to be easy to understand. Like, I feel like the voice is just like, so at the end of the issue, it seems to just be future Barry talking to Barry. I really do think that the voice that Thawne hears saying whatever early on is also just someone from the future. Maybe it's still this Barry, and it's Thawne was here on the same person, or whatever. Like, I'm not necessarily thinking there's an end, because I think when they first said that, oh, you could hear a voice through it, I'm like, oh, is it Darkseid maybe? Are we tying into that stuff?
Yeah.
But because of the ending, I'm like, no, it kind of feels more just like a sort of self-looping kind of prophecy, fulfilling prophecy thing here, where they're just hearing echoes of the characters who have went in there already, and because Barry knows who Thawne was, and maybe he sees him through like from the other side, and he's like, "Oh, you're Thawne," and he says Thawne or whatever. I could see it being something kind of like that, but again, I'm just kind of theorizing because it's fun to do.
Well, and that's what I mean by it's something that is like there's a state of uneasiness where it's something that we recognize, but we can't exactly put our finger on it, right? So it's like right outside of our grasp right there. And again, I associate that with the kind of cosmic horror-y thing. It's like something you're not meant to understand, right? And so if it is this self-looping, self-prophecy kind of deal too, right? That makes it that much more interesting.
Yeah, that's my guess right now, but obviously they could introduce any number of things that would shake that up in future issues. But definitely intriguing. I think I do like how they're fleshing everything out here. So what are you giving Absolute Flash issue 8?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
I think I'll go with a straight 8, but it's very good. I had a good time with this one. I do think they're starting to get this feeling a bit more exciting from a concept, because that was the one thing that was lacking when this book started, was the first 4 or 5 issues. It felt like the cool different take on the concept wasn't quite there yet. But I think these last few, between the Rogues kind of wanting to work with Wally, between the backstory here with this stuff with Barry and Thawne, and the fact that Eleanor is like super evil and whatnot, I think things are starting to really kind of feel like, oh, I'm getting what the unique part of this version of the Flash is versus the the regular version. So cool. Nightwing 131, legacy number 318, Dan Waters writing with Dexter Soy on the art. I love this book. I'm just going to say that up front because it's cooking in all these different ways. I think the build to the Zanni has been great, and this issue does such a good job of juggling multiple things that it's already set up. It juggles dealing with Nightwing Prime, and like Nightwing training him, which was obviously something we got to that emotional point at the end of last issue where Nightwing chose to train him rather than to force him to give up the powers, and all of the pitfalls that that's going to introduce. And I love Dick's narration, like noting that, yeah, I wouldn't have listened when I was his age either. I thought I was a badass. I thought I was cocky and I could go and just do whatever I wanted because I was Robin. I was the boy wonder and I felt like I could take on the world. But for this kid, it's even worse because he's literally got Superman powers. So he really does feel like he could take on anything. So I love that. I love the build up. We got that tease last time of the kids like being drawn out of their homes by the Zanni, and that's something that's brought up here from Sawyer, who gives that to Nightwing. So I love that. I love that also references back to her annual one shot, which was a great issue with her exploring some of this Cirque du Soleil stuff and what's going on with that. So great stuff there.
Yeah, that notebook that she shows him from the kids, and it has Cirque du Soleil written like phonetically.
Yeah,
that's what the kids are experiencing. And then when you go to turn the page, and it just has that half page of the Zanni drawing with the creepy red eyes, it really, again, it gave a horror vibe to this book that's been right under the undercurrent, right? Like, there's been horrific elements.
Yeah, it's been bubbling. Yeah. It's been bubbling right under the surface the whole time.
But here, just that image of him drawn with the big nose and the red eyes and whatever, you're just like, oh my God. Like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah,
there's a really good reveal.
There's a great mystique to it. And then obviously the way these plots converge, where obviously there's a big sequence early on which actually this is something else I loved about this book. This is just more of a fun thing than something that's paying off anything.
Yeah.
But Killer Moth's like hard on for all of his moth stuff was making me cackle. He's like, I've got a moth marine. I bet Batman doesn't have a submarine. I've got the moth marine. I've got moth rockets. I've got moth speedboats and moth this and that.
Yeah, well, and also the fact that we're reading Killer Moth, or we had read Killer Moth in the Batgirl year one.
Yes. Right?
And so for him to show up here and for Barbara to launch, the counter torpedoes that take over his Moth Marine, I just thought that was a nice, come around here, just how much of a goofy villain this guy is, that she's just able to disable it just like she did in her first time as Batgirl. You know.
Yeah.
So but yeah, no, him going at Batman doesn't have one of those. And Nightwing's even worse than Batman. He doesn't have any of these things. He doesn't have a moth torpedo or whatever he calls it.
Yeah.
It was
No, that stuff's fun. I think the art here is great. You know, Nightwing the speedboat, try to chase after and all that. Nightwing Prime's just meant to observe, so he's just keeping an eye on it. He keeps wanting to jump in, but he keeps saying no. Until, of course, the all the gang that have all turned into man bats, because it turns out the reason why they're after Mothman, or Killer Moth, sorry, not Mothman.
Mothman's completely different.
Very different. Very different. The reason why they're after Killer Moth is because he's the one that's been smuggling the man-bat serum to the gang.
Yeah.
But a bunch of the gang jump Nightwing, and Nightwing Prime decides to fly in and take him out and get him to safety. And he's like, they're getting away. Let's run after them. And Nightwing's like, no, it's fine. They're going to go hide. We can get them later. And Nightwing Prime is a kid, and he's like, I thought I was going to get like a supervillain my first time out. Like, I really wanted to get a supervillain. And he's so disappointed that Dick hands him a book about like forensic science and says, here, get studying. And be thankful it's not in Latin, because that's what Batman made me read.
I love when it cuts back to Nightwing Prime when Nightwing goes to see Sawyer, and he's just talking to the rabbit, going bored, because it's this big unit of a man, right?
Yes.
But he speaks like a kid, and that is a very good skill for Dan Waters to use here, And he's like, I don't need to be knowing about the decomposition and soil acidity. That's gross. And it's just, again, he's still an 11-year-old kid in this big, huge body.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And then Nightwing goes to see Maggie Sawyer, who tells him about the kids going missing. And I really like this one because it's super ominous, and it really gives a lot of mystique to the Zanni. And the Zanni's had mystique the entire time. He's been this great force. And Nightwing's big wide eyes when he sees that drawing, and then says, I've seen him, but only in the corner of my eye. I thought it wasn't real. I thought it was just a made up thing. And it becomes very serious to the point where Sawyer's like, hey, forget Spheric, forget was it Olivia's her name that's running the thing?
Yep.
Like, leave that to us, right? I'm investigating her. I'm going to take her down for good. Leave that to the police. These missing kids and this Zanni are outside of what we can deal with. This is where we need someone like you, Nightwing. You need to be the one who takes your focus on this. And I love the idea that he basically runs off without like starting this investigation because he hears gunshots and he knows that Nightwing Prime is going to intervene because he's going to be too tempted. He's like, he's not going to be able to hear that and not get involved. I have to go take care of him. So you have this really nice balance of like all the plots that we've been doing in this book intervening with each other or intersecting, because this kid is now getting in the way of Nightwing focusing on what he needs to focus on. And it's actually becoming, not that he's saying it's a burden, but we, the reader, can see, oh, he'd be like already looking for these missing kids if he wasn't having to deal with Nightwing Prime. And then you've got the tragedy that was set up at the start of the issue, which is, they're like, hey, Olivia's like something, smashed or murdered bot, right? Something that's much stronger than Nightwing, and they're talking about Nightwing Prime. And the Zanni just whips out some kryptonite. And I actually love when this comes into play later, because basically, Killer Moth was the one firing a gun at the gang who's now turned on him. Nightwing Prime jumps down, uses his heat vision, and when this murder bot from the Spheric company shows up, and he just doesn't really take it as a threat because why would he? I've got the powers of Superman. Nightwing's narration points out, hey, over in Superman Unlimited, an entire meteor of kryptonite landed. Kryptonite's not as rare as it used to be. And sure enough, they've turned that kryptonite into a kryptonite like cannon. A big laser beam hits Nightwing Prime in the chest, and it's actually tough to tell if he's dying or not. Like, the end of this issue is he's lying on the ground and Nightwing's like freaking out, and Nightwing Prime looks up, and the final page is this full page spread of a giant like Zanni face looking down on him. This idea that maybe near death, Nightwing Prime is looking up and seeing the Zanni. Like, because much like the other kids, like, he is still a kid technically, so he can still be lured to the Cirque du Sin.
Right. He goes, it sounds like circus music.
Yeah.
And again, this is where I would ask Connor, who's much more versed in music than I am, if like these notes are what we associate as the circus music, right? That are played here.
Oh, I have no idea.
Across the page, right? but yeah, when he gets shot, it also made me wonder too if like, so wait, he's effectively Kryptonian right now, so the kryptonite works on him. So if Dick goes and gives Nightwing Prime the soup, right? The that would undo this. Is that would that save the boy's life, but then cost Nightwing Prime, right? And what would that do for him? Is the kid still going to end up going with the Zanni, and that's the ultimate, ultimate loss for Nightwing,
Yeah, and I think we as the reader would not like be mad at Dick for that. Like if the only way to save his life is to turn him back into a kid, then it's absolutely the right choice. I love that, like, because obviously when he made his choice last time, like, what are we going to do with Nightwing Prime? Or not even last time, it was really the end of the previous arc where we said, oh, Nightwing Prime, this kid as like a Superman level villain or hero or somewhere in between, he's going to stick around. That was like a question of like, oh, how's this going to fit into everything? And I couldn't have been more happy with the last issue where Nightwing makes the choice that he does at the end. I thought they really built up to that in a really smart way. And then this issue, him being a casualty, where like he could be taken out, like he's not invincible just because he's Kryptonian, and they even use other continuity that's going on in another book right now to justify it easily. And then so it's like, hey, you making him think he can be this, maybe put him in this position. And on some level, Nightwing's going to feel guilty about this, and maybe is going to turn this kid more towards the Zanni. And so I love how all of the plot lines here converged, and it really feels like a good ongoing book, an ongoing story where all the parts are coexisting in the same world. Even something as simple as what I said earlier, where Dick is being presented with, like, here's what you should really be focusing on. These kids are going missing, and they're not connected. They're all living in different districts, which is kind of funny because, Weapons came out a few months ago, and it's kind of wild that it sounds very similar to that in a lot of ways. But, like, this is what you should be looking in at, and he has to kind of ignore it because he's too busy dealing with this other plot line that he's got involved in, and it's only going to make him feel more guilty later on if something bad happens to these kids. So I love how everything feels so well, all the gears are all working together seamlessly here. It feels very, very coherent and very well put together.
For sure. And there's also this whole monologue from Dick about Nightwing Prime where he says, in the kid's short life, he's been through so much, right? Poverty, loss, fear, poverty, yet still, given the power, he's trying to do his best to help others, right? So just there's that good seed in him, which again justifies Dick's choice to letting him stay. So so now he gets hit by this kryptonite laser, and now the person that's going to take the brunt of the guilt is going to be Dick himself, right? So I really like that little addition there, where him being justified and like, yeah, he's a good kid, he wants to help others, despite the fact that he's been dealt a tough hand. So now that he's laying here and he hears the circus music, what is that going to do to Dick himself?
Yeah, and it's such a simple thing, but that target lock-on panel where the laser's about to fire at him, that being green is just a nice touch of realizing, oh, this is what's about to happen. You totally get immediately because of that green color what he's about to be hit with. So really effective in that case. The art here is gorgeous, obviously. Dexter Soy's been killing it on this book. Obviously the Zanni drawings, the big Zanni page at the end, even that first page right at the start of the book, which is the Zanni standing like behind Olivia, and it really almost feels like he's the puppeteer of her, like he's in charge and she's just like an avatar for him. Like it really kind of got that across in the art. Really good stuff. Action looks great. I love this ethereal villain for Dick Grayson. Yeah,
because I don't think we've ever really I've read a lot of Nightwing, and I can't think of a villain that's been like this. Like we usually get their very street level types, or they're super villains that we're used to seeing, right? Like Heartless at the end of the guy was just a rich guy, right? That had an evil version of Dick himself, kind of, right? Here to have like this ethereal living between like reality type guy for him to come up against is very exciting.
This is a Twin Peaks villain. That's what the Zanni is. The Zanni's the Twin Peaks villain. He's from the Black Lodge. That's what he is.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff, and it combine all this stuff with like that first half, which was just fun because Mothman, Killer Moth kept making me laugh. The way he kept being so enthusiastic and excited about all these moth gadgets of one kind or another, and saying Batman doesn't have this, and I'm like, dude, he absolutely has a submarine. What are you talking about? Of course Batman has a submarine. Yes, you're so out of your element. I love C-list villains thinking they're the best. It's such a good bit, you know, whether it's Kite Man saying hell yeah, or this you know, stuff with Killer Moth. I love the gag of like a C-list or D-list villain thinking that they are going to be the next Lex Luthor. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, if it wasn't for these heroes, I would have gotten away with it, right? They're like Scooby-Doo villains at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. Yeah.
And so, but just, you have to think too that Killer Moth has to hate the concept of Mothman, because he is the real Moth. It's me. I'm Killer Moth. You know, so the idea that there's this cryptid out there that has almost a better name than him, he had to drive him insane.
Yeah, but he couldn't take it because he would just be copying Mothman's name.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I love that. But yeah, no, that final page with the Zanni, the way that Dexter Story's art changes, right, where it gets a lot more of like sketchier. There's a lot more fine lines, and you know, which goes in complete contrast to that Target Lock page, right, which is very what we associate with Dexter Story. So just it's working on all.
Yeah,
awesome.
And the colors kind of get a little bit more drained out. You know, the Zanni's always presented in very kind of muted tones versus all the other art. It makes it feel kind of like foreboding. Like we're building up to something here, and you're kind of like, damn, how's Dick going to even begin to fight this? I mean, this issue had everything. It was fun. It was funny. It had that good action. It had a great like build to the villain, which was mysterious and kind of almost like horror movie-esque at points. It paid off like things that have been running in the past couple of issues that were separate that are now coalescing, and that felt very satisfying. I mean, for an ongoing comic book that has ongoing stories, I don't know if you get that much better than this issue, outside of maybe having like a big like emotional like bit that makes you cry or something. Like this is pretty up there as far as an ongoing comic book goes. So no, it's great stuff. What are you giving Nightwing, Matt?
A 9.5.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm giving it. 9.5.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. All right. Justice League Red, issue 3, Saladin Ahmed writing with Clayton Henry on the R. So the gang, or I say gang, the two characters are off to save Red Canary, and Power Girl is shocked to find out she can talk to her parents through some sort of time phone or whatever this is that Red Tornado's cooked up. Phone. Yeah. And she's like instantly, obviously she's taken it back emotionally, but she's kind of pissed as well. It's like, what is this manipulative tactic? Red Tornado, talk to me about this. What's going on? And he basically says, it was meant to be a gift. I felt bad about tricking you, and I wanted to like reward you for being part of Justice League Red. And she's like, wait a minute, Justice League Red? You've got a name for this charade? Like, what is going on here? Yeah. I
also like that she points out, it's like, is it a gift or a bribe? So it's like, she's still suspicious.
Who wants to put a name on it? Like it's a little bit of incentive. That's all. A little incentive. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Red Tornado is a mess right now, and I love it because it kind of goes into this book where there's so much going on, but it's a beautiful mess in and of itself because I can see the gears working. I have no idea how they relate to each other. Right, with some of the reveals that we get through this. But just the idea that Red Tornado is trying to recapture his humanity by doing the most AI thing of pointing out threats before they happen and taking care of them, right? Which was always what we were told about Skynet, thinking that it can just do things better than humans, right? And taking full control. It's like Red Tornado, you're getting dangerously close, man, by trying to do it in the name of being human. So I love that twist.
Can't do things better than me.
Yeah, no?
I'm just saying. Okay. I'm a better lover than Red Tornado. That's all I'm implying.
Someone didn't read the Meltzer JLA run. Because that was a very horny Red Tornado is at a center of it.
Okay, horny doesn't mean he's good at it.
It doesn't, but I like to think that there's an exuberance there that makes up for skill.
He's a machine. I'm a sex machine. Okay, there's a difference. Anyway, I don't know what this joke is. Baz and Cyborg are fighting the Church of Blood, and they've got a monster which they say can only be killed with a blade with this name. So Baz just makes a construct of a sword that has that name in it, and it works. And he's like, yeah, that worked, just like I planned. That was a great idea.
Yeah, no one said I couldn't do that. It just said a sword that's called Bloodseeker. So I made a Bloodseeker sword. Yeah. That was real fun. Also, they're not the Church of Blood, they're the Blood Tabernacle.
Well,
and
we find that halfway through the issue though. Like, I mean, at first it's just the Church of Blood, and then they're like, no, actually, we have changed their name, right?
They don't go, they don't go far enough. So these are like the extreme members, the fundamentalist.
Yeah, there's
of the Church of Blood.
Yeah, there's not a Queen of Blood anymore. There's a King of Blood. They've got a new ruler in charge, or at least this separate, like, branched off faction has got a king. Anyway, they get to Red Canary. They help her out. There's a bit of a fight. Father Blood is the name of the king. And that kind of ups up. Ultimately, Red Tornado, when he's explaining stuff to Power Girl, he kind of admits that in the few versions of the future where Apocalypse doesn't take over Earth, all of them have Red Canary in a pivotal role, which is very interesting. And we also see that Red Canary has powers here as well, where she kind of like, I don't know, like just a wave of red energy just explodes from her, and it completely just tears the building they're in apart to win the fight against Father Blood. So curious to see where they go with that. And I mean, it's interesting them picking this character to be like this pivotal part of whatever they're building up to. So cool.
Has nothing to do that she's Red Canary for Justice League Red, However, it reminds me of Megara over in Birds of Prey, right?
Oh, a little bit. I can see that.
She has this untold power that explodes through her, and then when she wakes up and has no memory, right? When she basically comes to out of this, which I really liked. And again, Blood Canary. Well, that's a good name too. Red Canary was created for Green Arrow, right? Is that the first time we saw her?
Yeah, I mean,
Green Arrow,
when she's Red Canary, I have to assume it was something related where Black Canary would show up.
Yeah, so any use here of a new character, I'm fine with, right? I'm sure if there's a redundancy or not.
Debuted in Dark Crisis 3, which we obviously read. See if you'd said to me when did she first appear, I would never in a million years have whipped out Dark Crisis issue 3.
I would have bet it had something to do with the Green Arrow and him running through time or whatever, and that type of stuff. So anyways, so the fact that they're layering this character that we haven't gotten too much of, I'm fine with it.
I'll read you the DC Wiki entry just to refresh our memories. So she's a college student who basically just suited up when it seemed like the Justice League were dead, and she responded to Nightwing's call for heroes to come and help. So she came and did that. I don't think she had powers back then, though, right?
No.
Yeah.
But we've also had absolute power, and powers have gotten wonky.
That's true. Right? It could just be the absolute power. That's right.
Right. So who knows? She's kind of a blank slate at this point because she hasn't really appeared in too much.
That's true. Yeah.
So here, but I thought it was funny that Red Canary, Justice League Red Tornado. It feels like they're that's what's going on. So but yeah, no, her being that pivotal is pretty intriguing. Like, because what is so special about her? What is it about this power? Is it her? Is it because of her belief in heroes, right? Because if she popped up when the Justice League left and she answered Nightwing's call, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, forgetting the in-universe stuff, I just wonder, like, was there always plans for her? Because Williamson, like, created her, it seems like, and he obviously is spearheading a lot of stuff here. Or is this just a case of, like, they had this idea for this book, and it's like, oh, we need a young character to be kind of this pivotal role. They're the chosen one or whatever they're going to be by the end. Who do we pick? And then they look through, who's been introduced recently? And they went, oh, Red Canary, that's a fun character. Anyone doing anything with her? Nope. Okay, we'll use her then. I wonder what the order of, like, decision making was to get into this point. But it's interesting all the same. Which, by the way, speaking of Williamson, do you know he got an Iron Man book at Marvel? He's like, I'm like,
really?
Yeah, go to Marvel. Do more Marvel books, Williamson. Go there.
Hey, not before you have to read his Justice League book. We've already read that. His Legion book.
No, I didn't read that.
You know? Yeah. I think, guys, we should pay Pete to read it.
You ponying up yourself, Matt?
I might. I got expendable income. I mean, that means it's less I can spend on wrestling, so I'm sure my wife would be thrilled.
Oh yeah, I'm sure your wife will be thrilled. You're spending your hard-earned money on me reading A Legion of Superheroes, but I'm sure she sees the value in that.
That'll get me beat so fast.
Anyway, so yeah, they're all still pissed at Red Tornado. Also, Red Tornado says, yeah, there's like mystical stuff going on here, and I don't really understand all of it, so I brought in Dead Man, and Dead Man's just kind of standing there. He's just here by the end of this issue, which so Dead Man, when did he become physical? Because there was a long time when people couldn't see Dead Man. He was only like, he could puppet other people, but he wouldn't physically be there himself.
In every other Dead Man story I've ever heard, the only reason you know he's there is because he jumps into somebody and lets everyone know that he's there.
Yeah, but he's clearly there.
He's a ghost. So
you know, he's here in this.
They can see him. Yeah.
Yeah, curious to see where that goes. Anywho,
I do love that Simon's like, does he talk or does he just stare terrifyingly?
Yeah.
I thought that was a fun part.
Yeah, maybe he's not really there. Maybe like Red Tornado's just made like a hologram of him so they know what he looks like, and then he'll start possessing people next issue. I don't know. Anyway, at the end of the issue, he's like, okay, you're all here. This is really important. This is all led up. Like, we have to stop, and this is a hell of a word. The apocalypsification of Earth. Hey, Saladin. Look at me. That's a stupid word. Don't say that. He's an AI. He's supposed to speak like in real words. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyway, he sets up the next issue. Your mission is to kill Black Adam. Cliffhanger. Sure. What?
Yep. Why not?
I'm intrigued at the very least. I'll give you that.
Yep.
I'll give you that.
Again, this book is a beautiful mess. Like, I have no idea where it's gonna go from issue to issue. You know, I didn't think we were going to get the Blood Tabernacle, you know, a more fundamentalist version of the Church of Blood here. And that was very intriguing. The whole time phone with
Tabernacle.
With Power Girl. Yeah. Well, I had to look up. The only reason I know that is because the Tabernacle is a part of a church.
Really?
It's usually where the choir is. Yeah.
Because I when they said that, because I read it in the book, I knew they changed it to this other thing, but I'm like, I've never heard this word before. I don't know how to pronounce it. There's no way I'm going to remember how to say it. So I've been avoiding it, but tabernacle. Okay.
Yes. Which I do like, because as it's usually a chamber in a church where people go to meet or whatever. And like with the Mormons out here in the West, they have the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which is their actual like big, after a big temple, they sing there. So again, I've heard the word before, but
it sounds
here
like,
the fact.
It sounds like kind of something
sounds like Wizard of Oz word.
No, it sounds like something to do with genitals. It sounds like you know what a moose knuckle is.
Yes.
Right. It sounds like a word like that you'd use to describe
tabernacle.
You know, like
got a real Meiji tabernacle situation going on.
Like if you get your dick stuck in your zip, that's the tabernacle or something. I don't know. Like, it sounds like it's describing something with genitals to me.
Anyways, I was gonna say I appreciate that. Is that not what Pete said about the blood tabernacle? It's like
hold on.
Instead of being the whole church.
Just I feel like some people may not know what a moose knuckle is, and they're probably sitting there wondering what is a moose knuckle. I should explain it, right?
Yes.
You're all familiar with a camel toe, I assume. A moose knuckle is just the male version of that. It's just the pants are a bit tight, and you can see the bulge in there, and that's a moose knuckle.
Yep, and the shape there in which, right?
Yes. I think they can connect the rest of the dots, but I don't think we have to explain what it looks like.
Yeah. No. Anyways, just the idea that the tabernacle is a more specific part of a church, right? So this is a much more extreme version of what we've seen before, which I do appreciate. I love the DC cults, right? The Cobra, the Church of Blood. Sometimes Darkseid's got a cult running around. I think Intergang sometimes is a cult in Metropolis. That's also crime. So
I think of them more as
stuff.
like organized crime ring than a cult, but
Yeah,
That's
but
fair.
there's been stories where they act more like a cult towards Darkseid, right? Like,
Oh, sure, yeah, no, I know
they
what you
hold him
mean. But
in high reverence. But I just love that concept popping back up. So the fact here that we get that, and they're playing in and they're trying to do something with Red Canary, which makes her seem that much more important, right? If this extremist group wants, they're trying to sacrifice her, right? There's got to be something to her. So yeah, a lot of fun. Again, beautiful mess.
yeah. Oh, I need to adjust. I've got a tabernacle. Hold on. Were you rating Justice League Red?
I'm gonna give it 7 out of 10 tabernacles. It's a 7.
Yeah, I agree with the 7. I'm having a decent time with this book. I think its main strength is that the plot is interesting, and I'm genuinely curious as to what it's building to. The character stuff's okay. I think the character stuff is decent enough, but it's not like blowing me away in that respect. It's just likable enough. The stuff with the making the sword and whatnot, and their banter is good. It's not amazing, but it's good enough. And then the story is genuinely kind of interesting. So 7 out of 10.
What other book did we have Black Adam show up in? Was it?
It was this.
Was it issue 2 of this?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was. That wasn't. Yeah, I think it was.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it must have been last issue. Yeah, it was a quick scene of him. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
All right. Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 44. Mark Waid and Mark Russell writing together with Lucas Meyer on the art. This was a good issue of this book, and I don't know how to process that because I've been kind of like swimming in middling numbers for the last 25 issues.
Hey, Mark Waid, just hand this over. Hand the keys to Mark Russell, please. I miss having a regular Mark Russell book in my read list.
I didn't know it was co-written when I read it. I just thought, oh, this is another example of Mark Waid being very good when he's really focused, and it's not like tons of fights with lots of characters. It's just, we're going to have this story about Robin and Supergirl, and it's going to be very fun. Even the setup at the start where Batman's like, hey, I sent Robin to investigate this company that may be up to something, and Superman's like, hey, Lois found out that company's actually a subsidiary of LexCorp. Like, maybe Robin should have some backup. And Batman's like, yeah, but it can't be, like, I'm sorry, Batman, but like, Crypto's here doing that, and this other character's off doing that. It kind of needs to be Supergirl. And he's like, okay, fine, but let Robin have his pride. Tell her to just watch him from afar, and only to get involved if absolutely necessary. So it sets up this thing where Robin, Dick Grayson, and even her reaction, by the way, because we see her get the call. She's in like her civilian clothes with the brunette hair, and she gets the call, and she just like, has a thought bubble with the word shit in it. Well, obviously censored, but that's or maybe even an F-bomb, whatever you want to read that as.
Yep.
So the comedy here is so on point because Supergirl's flying above, right? Dick's like in civilian clothes, and you actually hear a bit of a phone call with Batman where Batman's like, hey, Dick, you need to make sure you're not in your, they can't know Robin's around. You have to be inconspicuous. And then you see what Robin's wearing. He's wearing green trousers, a red like vest over a green t-shirt, and a yellow like sweater over his shoulders. He's wearing his entire color set in civilian clothes. And then you just get a panel of Supergirl face palming and saying, God, you're an idiot.
This is how Dick Grayson dressed in the animated series when he was Dick Grayson. This same fit down to the sweater. So I think that was a nice pull as well.
Yeah,
here.
I just for me it was the comedy here. It was like her just being judgmental. Like Dick starts listening to a podcast in the car that's like a sort of like self-help kind of build yourself up kind of thing, and she's just like making comments about, oh, this is pathetic, and making faces as she's flying above. Like, all of that was really funny, and I think their interactions throughout this issue are really good. I'm not sure what the end game is here, because obviously this is set in the past, and because I thought, like obviously they're not destined to be together, because Dick's destined to be with Babs, and it's kind of funny that they had one date and it went terribly and they hate each other and it's all very awkward. This, though, goes down the route where by the end, even though they're fighting the whole time, they end up kissing and smooching by the end. So... very funny, very Xander and Cordelia from the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if I must.
I was going to ask you if it reminded you of any television show.
Yes.
And,
well, I hate you. Well, I hate you.
Feels like.
Romantic music.
I hate you more. But
Yeah, all this is good fun. Dick goes undercover in a lab coat, pretends to be someone doing an inspection. The woman just does not buy it at all. It was funny though, is I read this right after Wonder Woman, so when he said he's here to inspect mice, it actually made me laugh. Not because it was funny on its own, but just because I just read Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Also, he gives his name as Mr. Robinson.
Oh, that's right.
Which gave me a chuckle. Which this is why I was feeling the Mark Russell vibes in there. The podcast that he's listening to is called Second Banana, and it's all about being the number 2 person behind someone more successful.
Yeah, he's like,
and how to cope with that.
The bottom of the pillar is the strongest part, and it's integral to keeping everything up. And it's like, all right.
And so that felt very Mark Russell to me. The Mr. Robinson part, where it's very, we understand why it's silly, but in the world it seems fine. Also,
the idea that there's someone who's clearly like 16 is here as the inspector is absurd in and of itself. Kara sees him fighting his way through some guards with her X-ray vision, so she ultimately comes booming in, and he's like, "Oh, where did you come from?" And I loved her line here. "I was asked to babysit you by you-know-who. Side note, haha." Like, she's rubbing it in. Like, you need a chaperone. You weren't trusted to be by yourself. But then she looks like a bit of an idiot, because then Dick yells out, "Oh, you fool. This place is making kryptonite." And then, she gets wiped out. And she wakes up. And even this part with the thought bubbles where she's like, "Please don't be tied to Robin. Please don't be tied to Robin." And then she sort of looks over her shoulder. The art here is very good. The way she kind of scrunches and looks over. And then again, for the second time in the issue, she drops like an F-bomb or whatever, censored. And she's like, "Oh shit, it is him." And so,
this, delightful. You know what? The attitude here feels very much with the Supergirl that we see that's going to be coming up in the movie. Kind of rough around the edges, not afraid to drop an F-bomb.
Oh, from Women of Tomorrow. Yeah.
So feels very much. So I appreciate that. And when you mentioned that the second time,
I have to admit, I was quite down on that last issue of Supergirl, and this isn't doing it any favors, because I kind of like this voice for Supergirl quite a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so they bicker a little bit, and there's some fun back and forth here. She's criticizing his dumb plan, and he's like, "No, it was a good plan. You walk in with complete confidence. 90% of the time it works. The other 10% of the time, that's good to keep me on my toes. It keeps me good to think on my feet," so on and so on. So all of the reactions here on their faces, or even the fact that he keeps yelling out things to the guard that's meant to be watching them. He's like, "Hey, Dave, like, can you get us a slice of pizza?" Or he's like, stop yelling at me. All this super entertaining. And then when this guy Dave comes in and says, "Hey, you guys, it's healthy to argue when you're in a relationship, but not bickering. Bickering leads to bad things. But it's good to get out what your grievances are." And then they both yell in unison, "We're not dating," which also gave me a laugh. And then Dave just eats a slice of his pizza, but also his podcast like makes him or what he says makes him shed a tear. It's like a little weird moment.
Well, so the podcast he's listening to is about relationships.
Yes.
So clearly he's having issues at home. And so he's using this newfound information from his podcast to break down their relationship. And so when he sees them effectively working as a team and communicating, that's what makes him shed that tear. And I thought that was so funny.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the chains that are tying them up are like kind of kryptonite chains, which is why they're working on her, just for the record.
It's synthetic kryptonite, so it's not making her sick, but it sapped her strength.
Yeah.
So she has just regular strength, right? So, which led to a very funny, they're tied to the chairs together, and Dick stands up, and now she's like a backpack on him because the chains are still tied.
Well, they do a little trick first where she has to like use her super breath to suck in like the key card that's right on the other side of the room, and then she passes it to him, and then Dick shows off by like throwing it with his mouth into the key card slot. And then like you said, like he stands up and she's like a backpack, and he has to like do some fighting with her on his back. Eventually though, they're able to like break through the chains, and the fight ensues. And she's like, "Oh god, we make a good team, don't we?" Like in her head, she's not like saying that out loud. And it's all fun. But then obviously he like ruins it at one point by saying, "You're welcome for being saved, Supergirl." And she's like, "I'm being saved." So all very fun. I got a good chuckle out of that. And then he presses a big red button to see what it does, and it turns out to be a self-destruct thing. So We see everyone like sort of run out of the building, kind of diving, but like she picks him up and flies him away and kisses him when they're flying.
Oh.
And then the end of the issue is they're in like a car, clearly like kissing, but they accidentally set off like a basically like an emergency beacon for Batman, and you know, he's like, shit, we need to find that, and she's like, why, and then sure enough, like Batman rips the door open like a minute later, and they both yell out, we're not dating, and then Superman shows up saying, I heard the signal, I brought coffee, and then Supergirl just gets frustrated and flies off. It's funny.
So it's a proximity beacon, right? It lets him know when Batman's close or he's close to Batman, right? And he never activates it because he never needs to. She activated it, so it essentially is a homing beacon for Bruce to find them, which then leads to Clark finding them, and it was a very, very fun reveal.
Well, I thought it was something that was meant to be like a beacon to call Batman in, and that's why Dick was because that's why Batman bursts into the car with like a gas mask on. He's thinking there's something wrong.
Well, he says it's my proximity beacon. It's supposed to activate when I'm in serious danger.
Yes.
And I didn't activate it when. Yeah. All right. So it lets him know
that's
when
what
he's
I meant.
close.
Yeah. It's like a come help me as an emergency button.
Yes.
So Batman comes bursting in, and then he's like, "Wait, you and Kara?" And Kara's just like, "Oh, why men? I can't believe." And she's like, "You owe me one, Robin," and she flies off, and that's the end of the issue. Yeah, this was easily the best issue of this book in years. Like, and I legitimately mean years. Like at least 2 years. It might be the best issue of the entire book. I'd have to go back and actually think about it and check the others, but like I had a blast reading this one, and I was not expecting that because every month we go to read World's Finest, and I'm like, just time to slog through this Bizarro arc or whatever we're doing right now. But this was delightful.
Arc, a Bizarro arc, and now we get this as a nice little thing. And Lucas Meyer art also always fantastic, right?
The art's good.
It's that vibe, and a lot of the stuff with the, like you mentioned, the expressions and then the action, the breakdowns there. It was just fun to read because it felt like it was constantly moving. Like it had a bounce to it, right?
Yeah,
like it never took its time, you know.
Unlike a lot of the issues of this book, it felt like the story had a good focus and through line, so you were never like feeling overwhelmed with what the story was, and it let the main focus be the character interactions, and a lot of the art there really shines when it's like showing like their reactions to each other, and it was usually Kara, it was usually Supergirl like making a face because she thinks Dick's being an idiot, and she's annoyed at him. I almost hope if they keep doing these types of like Robin Supergirl issues that eventually they do like officially kind of break up, or maybe there's still kind of a thing when like Babs is introduced is like a thing in the timeline. I love the idea of there being like an awkwardness between Kara and Babs because he used to date her. Like I kind of like the idea of that coming up at some point. I don't know if they'll ever get to that point. I don't know if they get any plans to ever do Batgirl in this timeline, but
no. Well, and two, just the idea too that Babs is older than them, right? Too. So having that add in there, you know, how she's supposed to compete with Supergirl type vibe. So that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was delightful. I had a good time. Art was good. What are you giving World's Finest, Matt?
Giving this an 8.5.
I think I agree. With 8.5. That is the highest score that's had in a long time.
Wow.
So that's cool. Next up, The New Gods, issue 11, Ram V writing with Evan Cagle and Dennis Cowan on the art. So, yeah, I mean, this issue obviously teases the Black Racer, the new Black Racer, who gets a big entrance at the end of the issue when, like, you know, I think it's Joe and Kilowog are, like, standing in a Green Lantern ship, and they've got some constructs, but this Armada's coming, and, like, shit, this is just the start of this invasion. We need more firepower. And the Black Racer just starts like speeding through the other ships, like destroying them. And Kilowog's like, there's that firepower you were hoping for. So, did like that. I will say, though, that a lot of this issue was fighting, so it was inherently less interesting, I think, than a lot of these New Gods issues have been. Because it's less the big ideas that Ram V really gives us, and it's more just kind of paying off what he's already set up with some big fights. Which is not bad, but it's definitely not as intriguing to me as it has been before.
Well, there's one moment in particular, and it's when Scott and Orion are talking about Kamal, about the kid, and it gets down. So they're in space, and it all looks great, right? The artwork here, by Cagle looks awesome.
Yeah.
But
and the art by Cowan in the
it goes-
first 5 pages looks fantastic as well. Gorgeous
amazing
stuff.
as well, yeah. But then it goes to this like void page where Orion doesn't have his mask on, and he's sitting there next to Kamal, and they're sitting in the same like pose. And the conversation before this was about, you know, Orion's kind of change of heart in dealing with Kamal, right? Because he was going to kill him, so they couldn't, right? And he's like, you know, you were right about the kid, about me, about almost everything, Orion. We have to save him. Or he goes, I have to save him. He goes, no, Scott, we have to save him. And it goes to that like void page where it's just the two of them sitting together. And it just shows how like Orion has found common ground with this kid. Like, don't let who this kid is dictate to who he's going to be. And that in particular really resonated.
Well, that's something
that was a real nice piece here
that I think resonates for like these characters as a pair, Mr. Miracle and Orion. They're both kind of like different examples of products of either their, you know, upbringing versus their, you know, the nature versus nurture, right? And how they're both examples of one started in the good place but had to grow up in the bad place. The other's the opposite, and how they're both kind of ended up better for it. But it's kind of interesting. The big talking points here is there's a lot of granny goodness, like saying, Barda, you've always underestimated, you ever understood why I was the one that was training the Furies. It leads to a big full page spread of Barda being, well, very big Barda. She's like kaiju sized.
Biggest Barda.
I don't know if they set up why this happens, but
nope.
Yeah, okay, I was just checking. And then the other thing is that when Orion and Mr. Miracle get to decide, because he's basically sent off Max Lord with the kid into the black hole because they're going to the other side, and the power on the other side, which might be dark side, might not be, is going to use the kid. And maybe they'll stop it next issue, maybe they won't. But when they get to Desaad's like, oh, I've developed a weapon for you, Mr. Miracle. And he basically turns into a young, handsome man, but then he's got like one of those, what do you call those,
it's like an Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden, that's the one I was looking for, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that, but there's lots of chains as well that wrap him up, and then he goes inside the Iron Maiden, and it's basically like, oh, I love pain, and I can do this all day, but this weapon transfers all my pain to you. So Mr. Miracle starts like, you know, just screaming in agony. Yeah. He's being tortured effectively. And it's like, yeah. So the whole idea of this is like, you're good at getting out of traps, so the beauty of this thing, however it works, is that you're not trapped. This is not about trapping you. You can't escape this because it's got nothing to do with you being, but I'm the one who's trapped. I'm the one who's bound. You just get to feel what I'm feeling, kind of thing. So
yeah,
super.
And then
super
it gave a new version of Desaad too when he takes that face, right, and he's just like, you know, I can put whatever face is given to me, like whatever I need it to be in the moment. You're bound by these laws of good and evil. I just like pain. And I was just like, oh man, it sounds creepy. Like he was given Hellraiser vibes, right? By there. So but yeah, I thought that was very, very interesting. That's how you defeat Mr. Miracle, who can get out of anything, right? Is now you put yourself in a trap that he can't undo, right? Because what if he lets Desaad out of this? Right, if he can get it enough to it, will it stop? Will it continue? Like, it's a whole different kind of thing, which I did like.
Yeah. Now I wonder. I'm looking at these pages because obviously Orion gets to Maxwell Lord and the kid, and Max Lord says, "Hey, like see a sample of this kid's power. It can rip you apart," and he makes the kid fire like a beam of energy at Orion. And Orion like sort of yells defiantly, "I will not be broken so easily," in this kind of like white and blue kind of panel. The only thing I'm wondering is if like this energy gets all the way to Earth and hits Barda, and that's why Barda goes big. Just because there's a little bit of white on the next page. I may be reading into that too much, but it looks like what's his name? I forget his name. The one that's fighting with them. Akala.
Which one?
Akala.
Yeah.
It looks like it's the white on that page is coming from him, to be fair, so I think I'm just reading into that too much, but I was just wondering. But yeah, I mean the ending's big. It feels like it's building to a big, you know, blowout. It feels like we're reaching big ideas, I think just inherently though, this book's been so interesting with like all of the New God stuff and the wars and Highfather like sort of stepping down and the history of all this stuff, that inherently this type of issue is just a little bit less fascinating. Well, still very good. It still looks good and it's still fun to read. And I do think those character moments are really good. I think the build up to the ending is really great and the cliffhanger is good. It's just not as special and amazing as some of the earlier issues have been. That's all I would really say here. But it feels like it's building to a satisfying conclusion though.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, definitely there's less introspection about the New Gods. Yes. I think for me, that's where this book was really cooking. And what it means, because we get a little bit from Max Lord being like, I'm human, kind of. And what does this kid mean for me? Right? We can't have this. I gotta use it to my advantage. I did like that. That was a little bit of it, but not as much as we've gotten in other ones. But yeah, that thing with Orion and him coming through and just the hand that's coming through looks like Darkseid's, right? So like the fact that they're unleashing Orion's true form in order to stop Darkseid from coming, or coming through, or whatever's on the other side of this, right? We think it's Darkseid. I like that as well because it's going to be his son stopping the father, right? In his true face. And that also goes into, what Desaad was saying about wearing different faces, and this is the one that fits him for right now. Orion's been doing that the whole time, right? So, I guess a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I guess the main thing that just felt like up until the ending with Barda getting big, again very big, is I think that fight between like that group of characters with Granny and like the others, I think that's the part that felt a little bit like I saw them fighting last issue. I don't know if I needed much more of that this time.
Yeah.
So I guess that was the one bit that was dropping me down a little, but certainly still very good though, and like the art is very pretty throughout. That page where Barda's huge is very pretty to look at because you feel the sense of scale, and she's obviously just also like punched down onto Granny Goodness, so it feels like a little bit of a badass moment as well.
Yeah, talks about being more powerful than a mountain, right? The other connecting thing to that too is when Desaad unleashes this trap with that mirror, he speaks in those like glyphics.
That's true, and then Barda
does the same.
Yeah.
So there must be something to that I'm sure Ranvi will point out in the next, like maybe this is like the last of the New God energy. Something.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe the kid getting more and more activated is like just basically sharing out like New God energy at them. So this is like just random extra power effects that they're all getting if they happen to be New Gods.
Yeah,
maybe something like that.
It's more of the source, right?
Yeah, the source energy. Yeah.
Like undamming it a bit. So because it was all under Highfather, right? That was kind of his role. He was the shepherd, and now that it's going to Orion, things are a bit more in flux, maybe. And because of the kid as well. So, it's still pretty solid. This is what I love about Ranvi. Even a Ranvi story that we're kind of like, it was a little bit disappointing in a way. It's still really good,
Yeah, it just his caliber's so high, like his standard's so high that they're just inevitably when it's a little bit dipping, it's like, oh, this is weaker than normal, but it's still an excellent issue of a comic book, and I'm still loving the overall story. So. No, it's good stuff. What are you rating the New Gods issue 11?
I'm gonna use a straight 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. 8 out of 10. Nice and simple. So that'll take us on to what we've got next. Oh yeah, so every month on Patreon you can make me read a book of your choosing at one of the higher tiers. Today we're looking at Green Arrow issue 20, which continuing this Clearwater poisoning the neighborhood of kids storyline, and this killer who turned out to be a very sick woman at the end of last issue, and that's where we pick up things here. There is a little bit of again more backstory. We saw that kid in the flashbacks collapse, and it was quite sad and dark. Once again, we start the issue off with the next part of that story where the mother's taking him to a doctor. And the doctor says, oh, this was epilepsy, and it seems to be because he's got too much benzene in his system. And he's like, do you live near a factory? And he's like, well, yeah, that chemical plant's nearby, but we're not next door to it. And it's like, okay, so it's setting up this stuff, and it ends in this really ominous note where the kid's saying, yeah, but I'm going to be all right, though, right, doctor? And the doctor just doesn't really... He starts off saying, Kenny, it's not so... And then he says it again, am I going to be all right? And then that's the end of the scene. So we don't actually get to hear what his final answer is, but it doesn't sound good based on the way it builds to a conclusion there.
Yeah, not at all with what we've seen is happening with Freshwater.
Yeah.
Right, as this issue unfolds. So
yeah, I mean, this woman who was the killer at the mansion last issue, seemingly, she is very sick and she dies in this issue. Like, she's in the interrogation room. Green Arrow's talking to the detective lady and the other detective and asking to see the file. And he's looking at Freshwater. He recognizes what that is. And it's like, out of nowhere, in the background, she starts like convulsing, banging on the window, saying it hurts. And by the time they go in there to her in the next room, there's all these great moments of art where it's like close-ups of her mouth, like clenching her teeth. And it's like bright red and pink to like give you this sense of like of just the feeling of the pain, and she dies. And that final panel is just this box that's smaller than everything else. There's like a full gutter around it, so it's just white space around it. But this close-up panel of her dead eyes as the tears are just like coming out the side of her eyes. She died with tears in her eyes. And it creates a little bit of a rift here where Green Arrow, like Oliver, gets kind of pissy at the detectives. And says she doesn't deserve this, and like, yeah, but she is still like a serial killer. Like, we can't just kind of ignore that. And Oliver's like, yeah, but what about due process? I guess that doesn't matter then. I guess it's not equal for everyone. Like, other people, like, you're letting me in here. Why aren't you arresting me? And kind of challenges them on it.
That panel of him holding his hands up, like, cuff me now, then do it. If this is what you believe in. And then when they don't, it proves his point. He goes, see, that's right, two-tier justice. One for me and for these other people, so that's what we're about now. So I do like the struggle between these two.
Yeah, and then once he storms out of the room, the other detective, Tristan, I think his name is, turns to her and says, he's not wrong. And she's like, shut up. Hartley is what she calls him. Where did I get Tristan
Hartley, from? Yeah. I don't know. That's Tristan. Why I was looking through the things. Is a shut up, Hartley.
Hartley, yeah. Anyway, she has shut up Hartley, and it's very moody, and she kind of like skulls and like sort of rubs her eyes, and clearly this is getting to her. And then they realize that file they handed him is not there anymore, so Oliver's taking it with him. He stole the police file, so that's that. And we got our first real scene with Black Canary in this run, where he calls her up while he's cooking. And she's fighting a bunch of just random bad guys as he's telling her about it. This is like an exposition scene where he's like saying, hey, remember that Clearwater thing? And she was like, yeah, it was like, or Freshwater, sorry, not Clearwater. And he's like, oh yeah, the toxic dumping waste case. And he's like, yeah, it was pretty awful. They dumped all this stuff and then built an entire neighborhood on top of it. And these people didn't realize that when they were signing their new leases that they were actually signing their death warrants. And it also brings up again that Oliver had a bit of a history with this company. He even ran the company for a little bit. That was something we knew from the first part of this story as well. But it was nice to get a reminder here and sort of say that there's some guilt there for him in this.
And he tries to justify it, but it's like, yeah, like, but finding out my friend, I was preoccupied with finding out who murdered my friend, Abigail Horton, who's the namesake of that company, right? Everything else was secondary and it shouldn't have been. So he's having a lot of guilt that this went on under his nose, and it almost feels like he's going to use this as the to make it right, which I do like. And then their conversation, she goes, hold on, press mute so she could let a canary cry go as she's fighting all of these people. Yeah, I thought that was a little fun moment.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. And then he goes into all silhouette as he's like talking about all this guilt that he's got. And how this woman that died, was so desperate, and she was driven to this, and she's not, she's a victim here, even if she did do something bad. And it's making me think, especially since there's another killer at the end of this issue, it's making me think that all these killings are by different people who were affected by this, not just one person who's going around and doing it. Right. So he's looking at like the photograph of her with her family. Her son's dead. The husband left. And it's like, yeah, this all went downhill. And he's like, when Canary says, hey, don't get too tied up, right? Don't keep this in your mind. But then he kind of says to himself after the call, he's like, yeah, just forget about it like everyone else did. And he goes up to the roof, and some gorgeous art here, Montos on the art. Just stunning stuff as Oliver's like, you know, doing the target practice on the roof, and you get the close-up panels of his eyes as he's pulling the bow back, and then the last panel, those switches to that close-up of the eyes of the dead woman from earlier, like the tears going down the side of her face. And we get this shot, and I'll call it reverse silhouette, where it's silhouette, but the background, the buildings in the background are black, and he's in the light blue color in the foreground, and he just says, "Damn it." And this is where we get him losing his temper and breaking his bow, kicking the target over, and just letting out a bunch of frustration. And I loved kind of like the confidence here of like these slow credits like coming in over this last few pages, where you know you're late enough in the issue by this point that you're pretty sure this is building up to the final page. So they're doing this thing where it's DC Comics Presents a story by Chris Condon, and it's like him freaking out, and there's a full silhouette of his face with some panels inside that of him smashing the target. The dead woman's face is there again, and then he's like storming down to his apartment as it's still building up to the title, and it's like Green Arrow in, and then the final page is him in his apartment, full page spread, ultra dark and moody, and there's a killer with the big red eyes behind him, and that's the cliffhanger. So basically, because he was involved with that company, it's made him, he's on the target list. Like, you know, these people who have been killed are all people who were involved in some capacity to what happened in Freshwater, and now he's the next target. And he's at his obviously lowest moment of feeling guilty about it as well, so this all kind of coalesces here in this final page. So, no, really, really good stuff. This is obviously not as exciting an issue for the most part, all in those last few pages where it's really building to something cool. But it does do a lot of the more human side of the story, where it's like, okay, here's the real like tragedy of what happened there, and like let's feel the effect of it, and challenge the kind of the morals of the different characters involved and how they feel about it. You know, is it as simple as these people are the killers because they're killing people, or is there something more shades of grey to really think about here? So, no, that last page was gorgeous. Montos was killing it in this issue.
I also like when it starts doing the credit part and it focuses in on the target. All three of his arrows have missed the mark, which also tells me that in his mind frame, he's not seeing the actual target, right? Like he's not being able to hit the bullseye, and that he's off. So I also like that it shows a state of mind, right? It's not like it's because he was so out of focus, right? With the whole Horton thing, as now it's even showing here, which I do like. And the fact that he was the one that was signing the papers because he took over the company for his friend, right? So the Freshwater Killers don't know that. They just know that he was part of the company, you know? So I do like that he's just as culpable, right? Because he wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, that last page with what it does with the shadows, with the red eyes and just the bits of his hair that show up there with his head down, right? And you can see his goatee and mustache going on and everything. It creates a whole mood, and it works out really well.
Yeah, he's in a really dark place, literally and figuratively, in the ending. So it works really well. The kind of the weight of the story and like kind of the sadness of what's going on is a big part of it. So it gives it a lot of atmosphere and weight that I think, you know, a much lighter superhero story wouldn't have given it. So I appreciate kind of like the tone that it has. And Chris Condon, if I remember correctly, is one of the writers in those Vertigo books that were announced last week.
Yep.
So
Chris Condon was one of the names. Also, Cantwell's the one for Flash. Never mind.
Yes.
Ignore that part because there's yeah.
But yeah, so I'll definitely be checking out that Condon book from Vertigo.
Yeah, I think we'll be checking out all the books, but like, yeah, that one's I think more, you know, a bit more excitement because it's him. Now after reading some of these issues, so what are you giving Green Arrow 20?
8.5.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. 8.5. So cool. All right. Well, I got our Patreon book to talk about today, and that is Gideon Falls issue 3. So we was excited to get to this. Really enjoyed the first two issues, and it kind of nudges things forward at the nice pace that it's been going so far. It's also fun that I'll be doing 2 of these a month for a little while. So I'll be getting through the story at a nice clip. Father Fred here, who of course was let out of jail last issue because it turns out that dead priest did show up, and the opening scene of this is the sheriff coming by, and she tells him that, hey, we did DNA on the other priest, and yeah, there was matching stuff on him to the victim, so it does seem like he killed her. But he kind of notes down that, like, well, you don't seem convinced by that, no. And she's like, yeah, not really. There's something weird about all this. But you have been cleared. Like, you're not considered a suspect anymore. Apologies for, everything. And he's like, yeah, it's okay. You were doing your job. My story was kind of hard to believe, but it is what it is. And he talks about how he's struggling to write his sermon for the next day. It's, it's the first Sunday, and he doesn't know what to say because the town's previous priest not only died, but turned out to be a killer and killed an innocent woman. So how do you open up your first sermon addressing that? So, no, it's really awkward. It feels like a kind of a strained, kind of pleasantries kind of relationship. There's a lot of moodiness in the art here. Father Fred holding his head down a little bit, clearly feeling the weight of everything that's going on. But she says she won't be at church. It's not her style. And she drives off. Meanwhile, Burton, because his apartment got broken into and his stuff got stolen and ransacked, he's setting booby traps for anyone who might invade his house. What's funny, though, is he does note down, we get this big 2-page spread of, like, all the different locations in the apartment where the traps are, and it's represented in these red circular panels on top of the 2-page spread. Really fun in the art. Red's a really important color in this book. And it's something that comes up throughout, where there'll sometimes be like a red box just inside a panel, like highlighting like a specific part of the panel, and it feels like a focusing thing. There's sometimes, like, when the door gets knocked in a second and he's walking over to the door, there's like a fully red circle where everything inside the circle is just red, of like the sledgehammer he's holding to imply kind of the focal point of danger and like violence. Even the knock is red, but everything else is very muted. So very, the red always really pops and stands out. It's very intentional. But he does note, though, that all of these traps he's setting, this floorboard that'll like set off this trap with glass underneath, this jar of like acid that'll fall on someone if they try and take something off the shelf. He mentions that most of them he can't set up from the outside. He can only put them up when he's here, but he's happy because it means he can sleep peacefully, knowing that anyone who tries to get in will be badly injured on the way in. But the beauty of this is that the door goes, and the end of the last issue was his therapist, Dr. Zhu, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's X-U, Zhu. Yeah, I'll go with Zhu. But yeah. She shows up at the door, knocks on the door, and she's got this really kind of, like the art in the faces here is really good. He's shocked to see her, and then she is like got this kind of like sad like look in her face, and she's like, I saw the black barn. But she also, as she's walking in, he keeps having to tell her, oh, don't step on that, don't touch that, don't touch the door handle, it's electrified. Like he keeps having to like point out all the things that'll hurt her. And it's kind of an interesting little metaphor for like, someone who's this messed up in their life, and like all the little things that someone might do to set them off, but more physically. But she admits she saw it. She's been sitting in like a cafe for hours trying to rationalize it, but she saw the barn, she's seen it, and that's where that scene ends. But it's obviously, I was super excited about this because that was a big moment at the end of the last issue, that someone else was involved and was aware of this barn. Next scene is Father Fred at his service, talking to a pretty full crowd, and he starts talking about how fear and all that can tear us apart, but we have to come together with love and understanding as a community. The big, more notable thing, though, is that as everyone's leaving, a guy comes up who was standing in the crowd before and introduces himself, and he's got kind of a smarmy look in his face. And this is the guy that was standing by the bus in issue 1 when the priest was coming into town initially. And he introduces his wife and says, hey, we should have you over someday for lunch or whatever. And he's being very kind of nice, but there's kind of like a you're up to something kind of vibe. And again, a lot of it's in the art. He also offers the priest some weed, which was a weird moment. But it's there is hints in this story that the priest has got some, like, an abusive, not abusive, like he's abused substances in his backstory. I don't know if they specified which kind, but it's been hinted at, and the sheriff even asked him about his past earlier on. But yeah, he's like, hey, you should come by sometime. And again, he's left standing there. There's a lot of scenes with this priest where he's sort of left sort of on his own, feeling kind of like empty. And then back with Burton and Dr. Zoo, she's describing what she saw, and she talks about this figure that was coming out of the door, where all she could really make out was this wide smile that was very scary. And she says it felt real, and he's like, it is real. And you believe me now, right? And she's like, well, I'm not sure I'm quite willing to say that yet. And she's basically, once he starts saying, look, this is real, you can work with me to figure out the puzzle and, you know, get a handle on this. And then she kind of like backtracks and says, okay, it was a mistake to come here. I'm enabling this too much. You should come back to the hospital and stay there. And he's like, no, like, you're not going to force me to do that, because you know deep down this is true now, right? This is something I've been seeing my entire life, and now you see it too. And there's some great layouts here. There's like a sort of like triple Venn diagram like page where it's like going vertically down the page. And the way they overlap for like these like close-up moments is really good. There's a couple of pages like that. The next page is like that as well. But we're back to Father Fred, where just like on the previous page, where the middle circle was like a red close-up of like the floor where she was about to step in the booby trap. On Father Fred's page, he steps on like a floor tile in his house that's loose, and it reveals like some hidden letters underneath the tile. And it says the notes from someone named Doc, and it does a little flashback panel to remind you, hey, remember last issue when that police officer told him to go speak to Doc's, what's his name, Sutton? Go speak to Doc Sutton. So he's like, oh shit, I'll go speak to Doc Sutton. And this is where the layouts get really cool, because he spreads out all the stuff that he found under there, and there's like some like newspaper clippings and Polaroids, and it's basically different stories of neighbors report sightings of mysterious disappearing building. There's a Polaroid of the first meeting of the plowman from 1924, and then there's like a missing child last seen entering the barn. And these are all outlined with thin red circles, and then the line sort of goes down from them to a circle that's on the floor. So the one at the bottom is at an angle, as if it's in the three-dimensional space. It's got a really cool look to it. You get this feeling that this is all the stuff that he's looking at, but then when you see him looking at it, it's surrounded by all this empty space, and it feels like very isolated. So it's doing a lot of really smart stuff with the layouts here. So he does indeed go to Doc Sutton. Great art here. Doc Sutton's got a big bushy beard and a bald head, and he invites him in, and then we see that he also has newspaper clippings all over the walls, drawings of the barn. But this one's a lot more erratic. Like, so before it was these very neat like circles that overlapped and connected with like little connector lines. This page, there's these like red shards of outlines coming in from the side, and it's like almost like broken glass coming in, or even like a claw or something coming in is the shape of these panels. And then there's these like, the red circles that are here are completely filled with red. They're not just red outlines, so they feel stronger. They feel more like, this guy's way more obsessed. Before he was just looking at what he found. This guy clearly really cares about this, and it feels like an obsession. But this is actually the last page of the book, because the doctor explains, hey, you know, after the last priest went, we were expecting someone to be sent, and you're finally here, now we can get going. And he's like, what do you mean? Sent by who? And he's like, well, God sent you. And he's like, oh, but for what? You know, what's going on? And he's like, we're in a war here in Gideon Falls. We're in the middle of a holy war, and you are our new soldier. And that's the final line of the issue. So, like, it's doing a great job of building to everything. And I think the art style and the layouts and the way it keeps doing the like focusing in on things with red outlines, or if it's really like shocking and like really wants you to notice it, it's like these just fully completely colored in red. Those like moments are sticking out so well, and it's really emphasizing like these like details. And I think what really stuck out in this final 2-page spread with all these like little panels kind of put on top is that this doctor's like apartment or house with all these newspaper clippings, he's got like all these, I mean, actually now that I'm looking at it, it's not actually this, but it kind of looks like it before, because it's basically, there's lots of all these red circles and like red underlines and stuff all over all these newspaper articles. But it looks like when you look at a murder board and you see the red string, like, you know how, like, in a detective movie you'd have the red strings going from one to the other. It kind of looks like that at a glance, but it's not actually what's there. There's not actually any red string. It's all just art that's been put on to match all the other times we've seen them looking at things. That's really cool. There's circles on maps. There's more headlines of sightings of a strange building, of the Black Barn, of missing children. So this is super interesting. And I think one of the things that I'm still thinking about a lot when I'm reading this is whether or not the two stories that we're following are taking place at the same time frame. I genuinely don't know. I'm kind of expecting one to be set after the other. It's really tough to tell, honestly. But as it is, the mystique of what the Black Barn is super intriguing. I think the idea of one of the stories being about the skeptic, which is the Doctor character, Dr. Zoo, like, her coming to believe this stuff is real is really, like, selling it. She's almost like a conduit for the audience in a lot of ways. So is the priest, technically, as well. But I think her especially, because she's talking to someone else who does believe all this stuff, it feels like she's a conduit for the audience, and, like, her beginning to believe it's super exciting because it's starting to feel like we're getting to it, like we're really going to start to explore it. And then the priest story, which is like, oh no, there's been a secret society trying to fight whatever this thing is. Whatever this great evil is, there's been an organization of, like, an underground, I don't know, militia, or even if we call them that, like Justice League Dark in this small town trying to take on this evil force. But no, cool stuff. It's very good horror story as well. Like, I think it's got a really good presence in mystique, and good reading for October, so nice time for this as well. But I will give this issue, I think, an 8.5. I'm tempted to go in the 9. I just think that there's probably going to be more exciting, like, moments, like, of actual story beats. But I think the way this issue is constructed, the way it helps you focus on the details and presents its characters, and the mystique it's building is excellent. Having a great time with it. So that's Gideon's Falls issue 3. Which will take us on to the final part of the show, where we pick our favourite panel/moment, cover art, and of course top 5 books of the week. So Matt, what are you picking for panel/moment? And is it the German suplex?
Look, as much as I would love to make it the German suplex, it's definitely in the discussion. But I think there were some other more, you know, other moments that hit hard in this one. But yes, the German suplex, very much up there. The end of Nightwing, with the Zanni, that last page with the circus music, that's super strong. Jay Garrett getting absorbed into whatever that is. I thought, you know, it was a whole page spread with all that. That's up there. And then in New Gods, right, we have the image of Kamal and Orion sitting next to each other, with Orion saying, like, no, we have to save him. It's a group effort. So yeah, a lot to think about. So my moment, though, as much as I want to make it be the German suplex, as great as that was, is going to be the last page of Nightwing. That was just that. Cook it on all fronts.
Yeah, I feel like Nightwing is taking it for me this week. I mean, there's good stuff in other issues, obviously, but and I do like even a lot of moments in World's Finest, to my surprise this time, but either the ending of Nightwing or perhaps the scene of Maggie showing him the drawings, I think is the one that really sticks out to me, and getting Nightwing's reaction to the Zanni and seeing it on paper, like someone else has seen this thing. Oh shit, this is real. I think that's super interesting. So that's cool. For cover of the week, there's a few. Obviously, the main Wonder Woman cover is always great, right? That goes almost without even having to say it, really. Main New Gods cover, also pretty good. But I think for me, I'll give a runner-up shout out to the Adrian Gutierrez variant for World's Finest, which is got kind of like a, I don't know, it says road trip, and it's like Supergirl and Robin back to back, and it's kind of, it's got like an overall aesthetic where you're like, this looks like a sort of rom-com poster or something, where like the two like moody people who don't like each other are going to end up kissing by the end. Like that's kind of the vibe it's giving me, so I like that cover. There's two good Nightwing covers. There's the Dustin Wynn cover, which is solid. That said, though, my pick is going to be the variant by Jorge Fornes, which is the Nightwing arcade game, where you just see Nightwing's hands on the arcade machine, and there's a Nightwing logo on the screen. I just think it's a really simple, cool idea, so that's what I'm going with.
It's so solid. So of the ones that, so you mentioned a couple of ones that I was going to mention. I'm a big fan of the Nightwing main cover, right? It's got Nightwing with the Zanni behind him, but it's got Master of Puppets as like a subtitle on there, which I think is really strong. The main Wonder Woman the main Wonder Woman cover with her fist up with the Wonder Woman logo spray painted over the Mouseman logo. I think that's a really good defiant one. My runner up though is Justice League Red. There is a Juan Faraya variant of Red Canary, and it's done in like reds and pinks, and it's got her doing like a one-arm handstand on the edge of like a building. And I mean, it looks really good. But my pick is from Batman Superman World's Finest, and it's the Lucas Meyer variant, and it's got Kara carrying a very, very aggravated looking Dick Grayson. That is.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a bad phrasing. You could have said Robin.
Yep. Through what looks like Gotham at sunrise, and there's like a little heart in the clouds, and it's just it's everything I love in a Lucas Meyer art piece. So yeah, that's mine.
I'm just laughing because I'm realizing that I could be saying things like Supergirl kissed Dick this week. And it sounds really bad out of context. Anyway, I know I'm being immature. For art this week, it's kind of tough actually because Sampere is next level. Dexter Soy, phenomenal issue for art on Nightwing. Lucas Meyer was solid on World's Finest, but I do think it's between. If I could count Green Arrow or Gideon Falls, it would be even tougher because those both had phenomenal art. I think between Sampere and Soy, though, I think I'm going to lean to Sampere, but it's really tough, and I don't like having to choose. What's your pick of art of the week?
So mine was between Travis Moore for Absolute Flash and Sampere. And I'm gonna go with Sampere because I mean, doing a lot of work, a lot of different tone throughout, and it all works out. Plus that German suplex. So.
Oh yes, of course. All right, what's your top 5 books of the week, Matt?
All right, number 1 is gonna be Nightwing. Number 2 is gonna be Wonder Woman. Number 3 is gonna be World's Finest. Number 4 is going to be Absolute Flash, and number 5 is New Gods.
All right. My number 1 is Nightwing. Number 2 is Wonder Woman. Number 3 is World's Finest, shockingly. Number 4, we'll go with Absolute Flash. Number 5, New Gods. There you go. That's the rankings. Which means I will now tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. Dear listeners, viewers, et al. Ladies, gentlemen, spiny-headed looking people. That's a Buffy reference. Connors. By the way, just it's a joke from there's an episode where Mr. Trick comes to town and he's like talking to an audience of like that includes like demons and stuff, and he's like, ladies, gentlemen, and he looks at this one like demon that's got like a fin thing on his head. He's like spiny looking gentleman. I don't know. It's just funny to me. Anyway, next week from DC we've got Absolute Wonder Woman issue 13. We have Detective Comics 1102, Superman 31, Justice League Unlimited issue 12, The Flash 26, Green Lantern 28, Green Arrow 29, New History of the DC Universe issue 4, Immortal Legend Batman issue 3, Harley Quinn 55, Green Lantern Dark issue 7, and then your facsimiles and reprints and whatnot from then on. So yeah, I mean, I think Absolute Wonder Woman and Detective are the big things.
Flash is Waid and Cantwell, and it's a tie-in to KO. So I'll be reading that one.
Yeah, as will I. You said that as if I wouldn't, Matt. Like,
I don't know what you're thinking at any given moment. You know.
wait, but it's the start of a new run, though. Like, this isn't just like a one-time thing. Like, they're going to be sticking on the book for a bit, so we'll definitely check out the new run. I believe it's Cantwell on the main story, and then Waid's doing a Bart backup. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's what's happening.
They're saying that Bart has an idea how to fix this, and it's called Impulse Point. So we all know that Bart, you know, for all that.
Well,
so
having said that, it's a regular page count, so I don't know. Maybe it isn't like a backup. Maybe it's just their co-writing. But anyway, this is the new team for at least a little bit of time. So that is coming next week, and we'll see how all that stuff goes. But obviously Green Arrow we won't be doing next week, but we'll get to it when the Patreon the book gets there. So that's cool. Also next week we'll probably be doing one of the we haven't done Batgirl Year 1 yet this month, have we? So we'll probably be doing that next week for patrons and YouTube members as well. So thank you for joining us. You can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube membership and get access to that exclusive review series on Batgirl Year 1. Obviously, when that ends, it'll become something else. You can also get a chance to vote in the monthly vote that we now have, which is not up at the time of recording this, but it should be up in the next few days for whatever next month's is. I imagine it'll have Supergirl's next issue on it, because I was kind of in the leaning towards dropping that, but you guys can save it if you like, and I'll check what issue 1's are out next month if there's anything that's not an obvious like must read. Maybe that can go in the vote as well as obviously Batgirl issue 3 will be there as this kind of safety net option. But that is what you can go look for and help us out with. But mainly you're just helping support the show and help keep it coming. But that is us. That is Comics from the Multiverse for the week. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.